Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our MOSEF Winter Bash Finals featuring Apex Legends. We have just wrapped up our first drop of the day, and the standings are as follows. We've got Waynesville High School that actually had an incredibly powerful performance, and we only saw them a couple times in the early and late game as they managed to play around third partying super well, playing the end game around that bridge also incredibly coordinated, making sure that when they took the fights they were backing up when they were low on shields, creating covering fire, and then forcing their opponents to fight into multiple fronts as they took off angles, as opposed to just being able to throw one grenade and ending their opponents' lives pretty easily. So what they actually managed to do with that win is get 29 points, right? 17 eliminations. Now, this is not the highest total that we've seen over the course of the season. That's actually from DeSmet Jesuit, who I believe during a week 3 performance, but pretty early on in the season, managed to get 34 points, which means that they got a first place finish plus another few limbs, over 20 limbs. And Waynesville almost tied that in this first match of the playoffs. And this is meant to be the top teams in Missouri. So much stronger competition, and Waynesville still showed up. 17 eliminations, 1 win immediately coming out of the gates. So with our win condition number 1, 50-point threshold, if they keep up this pace, they could get the championship by drop number 3. So I think that really puts a target on their back, and the other teams are going to start looking out for them. They're going to say, hey, this team, right, they were the number 4 team in terms of accumulated points over the course of the season, but now we got to start looking out for them. So if they keep up this pace, they could get the championship by game number 3. If that does happen, we'd go into the lunch break and still play out the rest for second place onwards. Though I do not know if that's going to happen. I think now that teams know that, hey, Waynesville might be the team to beat right now, there will be a slightly more skirmishes in the early game, but we'll see what happens. Our second place team was Van Horn High School, who managed to get 4 eliminations, get a pretty high placement. We saw them in that end game. Unfortunately, they got sandwiched. We've got Marshall High School, another one of those teams that was in that end game. They finished with 10 points. And North County was that team that took the fight by Waynesville on the bridge, and they just barely eked out. I think they got 5th place finish or a 4th place finish. Then going down the line, we got France Howell North. They were a team that we thought was going to be very strong, 180 points over the course of the regular season. They got eliminated early by Waynesville, right? And even though they managed to actually escape and get to the mid game, still have a little bit of struggles going into it. Going down the line, then we got Webb City, Blue Springs South, all the way down to our couple teams at the bottom. We got Blue Springs, Parkway, Sykeston, all teams that we know that they have the potential, but unfortunately they dropped out in the first 5. They got 20th to 15th place. So at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world that these teams, they might have ended early. Maybe Waynesville got that first place finish because it's 1 drop, right? You got 6 in order to clean up the gameplay, figure out exactly what it is that you're looking to do, try and find that identity in this championship, because this is the top teams in Missouri, right? Each and every team is going to be looking to be the top dog. To be that top dog, and one game isn't going to be what makes or breaks. But trying to make those adjustments going into the second game, and third game and onwards, that's going to be what really shows who these top teams are. So going into the second drop here, drop 1 obviously is already out of the books. Map number 2, still sticking to Storm Point, still sticking to our guns. And we'll be dropping shortly. Students are now getting into the lobbies. I'll let you know if they make any major adjustments for a few of these teams. Look at a couple of our other teams as time goes on, and see if Waynesville and the other top end teams are going to continue to be as consistent they were in that first game, or if the other teams who are a bit further down the board are able to make a comeback, try and get a rebound off that first game that might have not gone their way that they were expecting. But we'll be dropping in the next couple seconds. I'll be right back soon when we're in game. And here we are, drop underway. It's more of a vertical drop going north to south, where the wall where we started our last drop off on is very early on. What we saw last time was that a lot of these teams avoided those high value loot spaces, and we're seeing it again, where it's looking like Waynesville is getting that wall loot while everybody else is finding where else they're going to go on the map. And I think we're seeing a bunch of teams drop to Launchpad in the bottom right, so we're going to try and see if we can't view some of those teams as they drop. So, give me 1/4 second here. We're seeing here, Team 13, we've got Retmo making the drop over there, and they've got a few other teams that are now beginning to fan out because they saw that this team was here early on. We'll see if anybody's taking any super early fights, but it's looking like every single team is kind of going their own way. We might have team number 10. We've got Hollister High School and another team that landed here. So this is going to be our earliest fight that we've got going on here. We've got team number 5 taking the high ground, taking more of the loot from the upper ends of the station, while you see that they spot Hollister down there. And this is going to be our first fight of the game. We've got Van Horn, we've got Hollister. Both here, both trying to stake a claim on this location. We're seeing a couple of these Hollister players. They're taking a Nemesis burst rifle. It's a gun that's pretty good at long ranges. Takes a while to charge up, but there's a lot of potential. And the Mastiff shotgun. Second you get in close range against this gun, 2, 3 shots. And we're seeing already that there is a bunch of alternative angles that this Van Horn team is taking. You're seeing them kind of try and pinch from a couple angles, and that's what they got because they were at the high ground, as opposed to being forced to respond. And we're seeing every single one of these angles. Unfortunately for Hollister, they're being forced into this tiny little chokehold against their opponents. And now they're super low on HP, forced to use a lot of their meds early on, and being forced to run away from this super high value loot location. And Team 5 is not stopping. Van Horn is going to try and get some of these eliminations early on because they know this placement, these first couple of limbs, it's a good tone setter for the rest of the game. And Hollister is just forced to use every single bit of resources to try and stay alive. You see that they have the conduit, that green shields in the bottom left corner. That means that even though that their shield got broken early on in this fight, they actually have the ability to regenerate that shields. And we actually have a great wraparound from this Hollister player. I told you the Mastiff shotgun's pretty good from this close range. But unfortunately, another down goes their way, being forced to play around these shields, and an excellent burst coming out of this Catalyst player with the R99. Gonna try and get this elimination early on, try and get the res for their teammate, while Van Horn is being forced to lick their wounds and back up. It's unfortunately just this Bangalore player left alive while everybody else is down, maybe even just gonna go outright, as we see that this burn goes down, and it looks like Hollister has won the fight for this location. We'll see how everybody else is doing on the map. We're seeing a couple skirmishes maybe about to start up in the bottom right corner of the map, near Devastated Coast. See if we can't hop over there. So we've got Team 9 here. This is Web City looking to creep up on, I believe it's Joplin, Team 20. You're hearing a bunch of sounds already coming through. Team number 9 here, Web City, trying to get the jump on them. Unfortunately, the jig is now up. Time for a full-on skirmish. We're seeing another new gun here, new combination. We've got the Spitfire Triple Take. Triple Take is going to be a gun that's incredible from long ranges. It's a shotgun and a sniper rifle just kind of merge into one. And the Spitfire is a LMG, so the longer that you're shooting, the more damage you're doing. It's a gun that's better for these super long, extended fights. And then the Rampart player. I spoke about this in the last game. Rampart's a very strong character right now in the current meta, where she builds up those barricades that you're constantly having to fight through, and then she's got this big gun for her ultimate where it's able to destroy these other utilities that their opponents have. And we're seeing the Rampart player on the other side is already being forced to use all their materials early. Person goes around the corner, instantly gets beamed down. We'll see how they actually play around this, because this is Team 20 Joplin. We're going to view their Rampart player as this fight goes on. Kind of giving up their position a little bit with that laser sight, but they actually break down 2 shields, nearly get it down, and this is a very bloody fight for both teams. We're seeing the Bloodhound on Joplin's side already go down. The Conduit is being forced to take a wraparound to try and pick them up. And then Team 9 here, we're going to see Web City try and get this elimination. And this is looking like a bad fight for Joplin. They might have to just take their losses and run if they can, but it's looking like Web City manages to take one of the first elims of the day. And see if we can immediately drop into another fight that goes along here. I believe I might be able to get over to them. Team number 8. So we're seeing another fight here. As I mentioned before, the 30-30, incredible gun from this long range. We're seeing it piloted by a Watson player. Not really the type of fight that you want to be taking as a Watson. Already, Team 11 here, St. Louis University High, forcing them to back up and already nearly get it down. It's looking like 2 members of that team is actually getting eliminated. Now this Watson player for team number 8, North County, is being forced to run away. Now this is where the bunker style play really shines for a player like this, because Watson is a character where if you want to fight into her, you want to fight into the building she's guarding, you have to take out a bunch of electric shock traps, you have to play through her ultimate that regenerates her shields and prevents grenades from coming through. So it's not completely doomed for this player to revive their teammates and try and play for endgame, but it is certainly not the position that they wanted to be in already. See if we can't move over to what's going on here in the top right corner with team number 1. It's looking like there's potential for a little bit of a fight, but it's looking like France Howell North is just going to pop that smoke on their Bangalore and try and rotate to a different fight, because honestly, this isn't exactly the fight you want to take. Super, super advantageous for Team 15 here, which would have been Blue Springs High School. Reason why you don't want to take that fight if you're France Howell North, you're shooting up, they're shooting down. They can just peek around, cover and regenerate, and you have no way to actually prevent that from happening. So it's better to just rotate out, try and live your life, and move on to fight another day. Seems like we've got a little bit of fight here from team number 6 as well. Sykeston rotating out. They're on this left side of the zone, attempting to find their footing here in this mid game, see if they can't figure out where this end game circle is really going to be, try and figure out exactly what it is that they're trying to set up for as time goes on. And we're seeing a big skirmish set up around this bottom left hand corner, right at the corner of the left side of zone. We've got Team 17 here, Blue Springs South. Looks to be in a pretty good position here versus the sniper on the other side of the map, where almost manages to actually get the elimination with the Nemesis there. And we're seeing the other team have to play around this cover pretty well. So team number 7, DeSmet Jesuit, they actually have this giant gate that they can use to wall off their opponents. Maybe in this mid game, this angle right here is enough to prevent their opponents from ever crossing through, because it's looking like there's going to be a lot of teams congregating on the other side of this gate. So DeSmet could, if they wanted to, sit on this side, just pick off everybody as they try to rotate in, but they do need to reset a little bit. And it's already looking like Blue Springs South 2 is kind of getting pinched here from a couple different angles. As we saw on that mini-map, there was a couple different teams. Oh, and immediate couple shots from the longbow managing to force their opponents to get out on the cross. This is one of the reasons why the balloon, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Some teams like to use it to rotate early on, get around zones like we saw in the last drop, but it can be also used to rotate mid-fight. And we're seeing Desmet take a ton of damage. Both of their shields on their Bangalore and Bloodhound already going down early, and this is allowing Blue Springs South to actually rotate in and try and get the position, because Desmet, remember, as I said before, was in a really strong position if they could wall out their opponents, but because they were slightly too aggressive, they're forced to back up super far and actually cede this space to Blue Springs South. And these longbow shots are just killer, constantly forcing their opponents to play around these angles. But already on the other side of the map, we're seeing Desmet also do the same thing with their own sentinel shots. So it's just trading damage. Neither team wants to be the one that goes down this fight. They're just trying to force them to use their resources if they can, so that in endgame, when they're positioned around this, one of the teams has an advantage. And looking around the map, we're seeing a lot of teams congregate around this middle section. We've got Marshall being forced into a little bit of a corner by team number 15. We've got Blue Springs High School. They managed to actually take a very strong position with this triple take. We're seeing a couple adjustments made by these teams going into the second drop on Storm Point. I mentioned before, as we were getting into game, that this is a long-range map. There's a ton of wide open spaces and natural cover. So we're seeing a couple teams actually go the sniper rifle route, the triple takes, your sentinels, your longbows, and just trying to get that one shot to knock out their opponents. If they can try and get that headshot, they can break shields, take out about 90% of their life pool, and maybe then you can use that as a route to get in. And we're seeing the other team, team number 3, Marshall, being forced to use their balloon early on, and the place that they want to rotate to is already being covered by the team of Blue Springs High School. So now they're actually just going to go and follow Marshall and wherever it is that they end up disappearing off to. And Marshall actually dropped into a very bad location. I do not know how this Wraith's going to have an opportunity to get out unless they can wait for their tactical to recharge. But unfortunately, this is why it's a rough position to be in this corner, because the grenades are coming from all different angles and she's being forced to run away, or everybody knows where she is. And we're seeing team number 10, Hollister High School, the one that we opened up with, is actually the team that's slowly just draining Marshall of all of their resources, all of their medkits, all of their batteries. And guess what? Marshall ain't stopping. They've got a really strong bunker right now with this catalyst reinforcing all the doors. It's not your traditional bunker in the sense that every single player is geared towards preventing you from getting inside their building, but the catalyst does a good job of making sure that no matter what, you're always going to have a doorway to play around because of her passive. We're seeing Marshall get out because of their Wraith ultimate. It's a giant teleporter, so when she went into that blue state, she immediately procced her ult so that her teammates, even though they were in that bad position, losing all of their med supplies, nearly getting eliminated by all those grenades, they were able to just teleport out. And they are also able to reset all of the resources they just used because they chose the Loba. Loba is a character who she's pretty prominent in ranked play, especially solo queue, but you don't see her as much in organized team play at the highest levels because her teleport that she's got is pretty one-dimensional, doesn't help out her teammates. But here at the high school level, it's a very prominent pick because her ultimate, that little blue orb that you saw on the ground, it gives you a ton of ammo, gives you a ton of medkits, it gives you a ton of supplies, and potentially upgrades for your equipment. So it's a way to consistently get your loadouts and get some resets in these mid-game fights. So Marshall's actually able to get out of that position that they were in, and we're seeing a ton of action take place here around this central location. See if we can't get a better angle on some of these teams. We'll go over to team number 9. So we've got team 9 here, Webb City High School. They've got a huge bunker set up with their Rampart player fighting off against team number 1, Francis Howell North, who's being forced on the outside portion of this circle by a couple of the teams on the high ground. Team number 9 also looking with that sentinel shot to try and take out one of the big dogs in this tournament. Quickly swap over around the map, see if we can't get some more fights. We've got Marshall once again sitting in the corner. And team number 2, Blue Spring South. This is one of the teams that was taking that fight for the central tower and was forced to back out. Now, Blue Spring South, they were the number 2 ranked team going into this event. Didn't have the best of early games in the last drop, so they didn't get as many placement points as they want. And already, they've lost one of their players. So they're going to be playing a little bit slower. Their Bangalore, their heavy skirmish-style character, is the one that they are looking forward to in order to win this game. But they're going to have to play a little bit slower, try and get some extra placement points. There's still 12 teams alive in this 4th ring. That's a ton of teams. Usually in our previous matches, we were seeing maybe like 6-7 teams, so nearly double that. And Francis Howell North managing to take over this lower angle. See if we can't go over to team 10. We've got Hollister attempting to zone camp a couple teams, and we're seeing that's team number 7, DeSmet Jesuit, team that we saw take a bunch of skirmishes early on, being forced to use a ton of resources, and you're seeing they can't really regenerate a ton of their health. So they're being forced to take these fights with very low shield, so every single bit of damage they take is the difference between living and getting eliminated early on here. But that's why they choose the conduit, that green shield, where even though they were taking those fights early and they were forced to use their resources, they're still able to take the fights evenly for right now, and they force their opponents to transition around. We've got Van Horn High School just attempting to rat it out, try and get as many placement points as possible. We've got Hollister still maintaining this strong zone that they had earlier on. And we've got Waynesville, actually the team that won our previous drop, in a bad way on the other side of that corner. They're still positioned to take this fight in endgame, but there's still only one player. So any type of stand that they can take, they'll gladly have. We've got Marshall still maintaining this strong position that they've had. They've got another reset with their Loba player, so they're even in a stronger position than they were beforehand. Going back to DeSmet, still positioned on this outside of the circle, trying to zone out a couple of these other teams, take a couple pot shots, see if they can't break some shields. And this is one of the reasons why you choose a Bloodhound in the late game. You saw that giant pulse. It shows you exactly what angles you need to be looking at. They knew teams were inside that building to the right, but they didn't know exactly where they needed to be looking in order to prevent them from making it outside. We've got a couple different rats here. And Marshall, and Hollister High School, the zone, the way that it's turned out for these teams, they are in an excellent position for this end game fight. Got team number 2 here, Blue Spring South, attempting to break into the building, see if they can't try and force their way into getting a higher placement. We got 8 teams now left. And unfortunately, team number 5, Van Horn, we just see them get eliminated by DeSmet. DeSmet eventually takes the push, and now they're in one of the best positions they can be. They've got a team directly below them, but they managed to get a reset. So all of that farm that they were missing, all of their health and resources that they lost, they managed to get it back by managing to take that fight. But unfortunately, on the rotate out, they get hit by the Bangalore ult, and now it's looking like it might be the end for them, as Hollister is still in a very strong position to hold their ground in this end game circle. And we're seeing exactly the strength of Bangalore in this end game. You're seeing so many smokes for these teams. And this is what I was talking about with the bunker, the catalyst. Every time that door breaks, they immediately replace it with another one. And unfortunately, Desmet, who was in a very strong position earlier on and now only has one player left standing, and they're attempting to see if they can't get one extra placement point, playing around the fact that they're Bangalore so well. The passive for Bangalore actually makes you move faster if you're getting shot at, so right there he's saying that it's saving their lives as they're attempting to run away, and unfortunately they're out. 4 teams are left remaining. We've got Marshall, we've got Hollister. Both of them are in very strong positions to win this endgame. Marshall was a team that got top 4 in our last drop, and they're looking to see if they can't whittle down their opponents. And one of the other teams here is Sykeston. 2 players left alive. Both of them are the skirmish-heavy opponents. So we're going to see which team ends up taking the win here. Because position is the most important thing here. And one of the Marshall players actually goes down. This is a good chance for a third party. Marshall is actually in a very poor position because they have no doors to play around. And Sykeston, unfortunately, looks like they only got the 1 player left. It's the Bangalore attempting to get a little bit of reset. Marshall's trying to get a reset. Meanwhile, Hollister is still inside their building. Unfortunately, that's the end of Sykeston. We've got Marshall, and now this is why Hollister was positioned where they were the entire game. Now they're in incredibly strong position in this endgame. 3 teams left on top of the building with a very strong skirmish composition. So while they were bunkering earlier, playing around the fact that they had catalysts to reset their walls, now their entire composition is built to win this endgame fight. And the team that they're playing against, team number 11, we've got St. Louis University High School number 1, who's also in a very strong position. They got 3 people alive, managed to throw out Hollister into the zone. They've got the wingman, see if they can't get some shots off. Play around the fact that there is a horizon, and St. Louis University High School managed to actually sneak around and get the win from their position. Hollister, very strong position all game. They played around the fact that they had that building for a long time. But when they were forced to push out, they weren't able to take the fights as clean as they had hoped. They weren't able to take out Marshall as quickly as they had hoped. So they were forced to use resources, and then that's where SLU snuck in, managed to play around the fight incredibly well, had a stronger health economy, had better shields, had better guns to take that fight in endgame and managed to sneak out that win. So congratulations to SLU High managing to take it out. Marshall, another very strong top 3 placement. We'll see if that consistency is enough to push them over the edge. But that's what I'm saying. These top-end teams, they're consistent, right? So if Marshall's able to maintain that, and then once they get over the 50-point threshold, make that tiny little leap, instead of getting a 4th, 3rd, 2nd place finish, they get that first. Maybe that's enough to push them over the edge. SLU High, now cementing themselves in that conversation, saying, hey, we want to be one of the best teams here today. And SLU High won, stamped their ground. 2nd team to win a drop today. And we'll be back in 8 minutes for our next drop. This will be the final one for Storm Point, so stick around. We'll see you in a bit. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the MOSEF Winter Bash Finals for Apex Legends. I'm your host, Coach DJ, once again, and we are getting ready to get into our third drop of the day. Our current standings are as follows. Waynesville High School still maintains their first place threshold because of their win in the first game. Of course, they didn't inflate it as much as they were hoping for in this second drop, but they're still maintaining that advantage going into the next few drops. SLU High, Team 1, who managed to get that win in this last game, moved themselves all the way up the board to second place with that first place finish. They also have the second most eliminations right now out of any team. So we're seeing, as we're getting further and further along, as we head into this third drop in a few minutes, the best teams are consistently placing within top 5 and consistently getting more eliminations than their opponents. So that's going to be the difference maker for these teams in the early stages where they're trying to get to championship point, try to get to 50 points, and then win off of that. Is the better teams consistently are taking fights that they win. And we're going to see how these teams adjust, because we saw a lot more in that second drop. More longbows, more type of sniper rifles, taking those long-range fights to try and immediately get that advantage in the health economy by destroying their opponent's shields, not giving them a chance to take the fight back, trying to whittle down your own health pools. And we also saw a couple more bunker-style play styles make it to endgame. We saw Hollister manage to have a really strong showing up until they got top 2. And their composition was, for all intents and purposes, designed to skirmish. They had a Catalyst whose entire concept is that she throws up the wall in endgame so that you can create some confusion, get a couple rotations that you otherwise wouldn't on a different character. They had Horizon, they had a Bangalore. Their composition is one of the meta styles of play to constantly rotate, get to high grounds, use your wall and your smokes from the Bangalore to create confusion, and then throw the Bangalore ult at the end game and try and win off that. But they still played slow, so that they played around their Catalyst, they played around their passive to refresh doors, and they got to that end game. We saw Desmet play a very skirmish-heavy style, and they managed to take a couple fights that were very good for them. And despite the fact that they were low on health several times, the fact that they chose the Catalyst character meant that when they took that elongated skirmish, they constantly got that shield refresh. And that's something that we're seeing more and more as these games go on, is how are these teams adjusting their play style to what works for them. So that's our top 2. We got Marshall, team that consistently has gotten top 3. They are now a third place team. We got Van Horn. They also managed to make it to that end game this past game. Blue Springs, then they're in 5th for their 2 team. And going down the board, we're seeing that there's a lot of teams nearly at that threshold that everybody else is. They're only 10 odd points away. So even if you are in the position that, like Republic High School and everybody else is, that has that 1 point, all it takes is that one game to go your way to immediately be back into these standings. Because at the end of the day, if we go to 6 drops, right, we go to that most points after 6 drops win condition, all that matters is that you're getting to 50 points. It doesn't matter how you get there. So for these teams that might have not started as hot as they wanted, they still have a ton of time in order to get to that point. If Waynesville had gotten that win and done exactly what they did in that first game, and they're at, say, 59 points now, there'd be a little bit more pressure to act now, to make this your chance. But for every single team, you're still at least 1 game away from getting to the championship point threshold, which means you are getting to the second set of maps. So this will be our last game going on Storm Point for today. Then we're going to have a nice little break, come back, and go to World's Edge. So each team now has the opportunity to play on the second set of maps. And some of these teams today, they do significantly better on that second set of maps, which is World's Edge. A lot more close range fights, a lot more verticality, a ton more opportunities to show your mettle, as it were, in terms of taking good gunfights, making sure that you're managing your health economy and your rotations well. So we still got a couple minutes before we get into the next game, about 2 or 3 minutes away. So we're going to refresh a little bit about how are these teams getting to where they are? Because I know that it's been a couple games. It's been about an hour and a half, so let's do a little bit of a refresher. The way that our teams are scoring points today is based off 2 metrics. 1, placement, 2, eliminations. We saw both Waynesville and SLU had over the 10 kill threshold or 10 elimination threshold. We saw Marshall and Webb City also consistently getting those elimination points. When you're a team that maybe because these end games, they're so robust, you're having 12 to 14 teams here, eliminations might be more important right now because like we saw the fight with Waynesville, they were in a pretty good position, but they also went out in like 11th or 12th place. Or they went out pretty early, like maybe closer to 8th. So because they got eliminated early, maybe the placement wasn't exactly that got them to this position. It was the fact that they got a lot of eliminations. So let's see if teams adjust to that as they realize how robust these end games are. Or maybe a team picks some more skirmish heavy comps to try and when there's 14 to 12 teams in those end games, try and get as many of those eliminations as possible. But we're going to see how that adjustment comes along. And then we've got our map rotation. As I mentioned before, this is map number 3 that we're going into. So it's our last game on Storm Point. And it's the last chance for these teams to really show, hey, I love this map. I did so well on this map during the regular season. I need to showcase this now or never. But we'll be dropping into this map in the next few minutes. So I will be back in just a little bit to showcase drop number 3 for these teams in Missouri. See you soon. Alrighty, the players are now loading in for drop number 3, the last drop of Storm Point. We're already seeing a couple of the top dogs get a little bit further ahead. It's not an insurmountable cavern for these teams to overcome yet. And this is the last chance for the teams to really show their mettle on the Storm Point map. Show that in these super long-range engagements that they can be the team that comes out on top. See if they can't play around the buildings that we've seen in the past, like Hollister has. Or the fact that that entire endgame circle had the potential to fall around the tower as opposed to the buildings right next to it. There's a couple different things that if it just goes the other way, a couple of these teams might be in better positions going into these endgames. And as we're loading in right now, teams are getting ready to get into their drop ship, and we'll see exactly where it is the students are coming from. So we're seeing that it's starting in the bottom right and going top left. Both of the previous two drops actually started at the northern side of the map. So we're going to see a lot more engagements around this bottom side map now. In the past, we tried to look at it a couple times, but it was only a skirmish every now and so. But we're going to see how it works when more teams now go towards the wall, go towards North Pad, go towards Down Beast at this end game, like late drop, and seeing if it works out for them. But we're going to see if we can't showcase one of the teams we haven't had a chance to look at yet today. Give me 1/4 second. Take this off. Let's go to team number 13. This drop ship that we're seeing here for Republic High School, very few other teams decided to drop here, and you can see on the minimap a couple of the things that they came to this location for. You've got a crafter, and you've got a lot of different verticality and loot spots. So if another team attempted to contest them, they drop on the high ground. They always take the fight from up above, see if they can't whittle down their opponents. Because nobody else dropped with them, now they get all of this loot, and you're just seeing how much is available for them. Already a gold shield, so that means every time that they heal with one of the mini shield vats as opposed to the big one, they're actually healing half of their life every single time. So this is a great start for a couple members of their team. You're seeing they're starting with the R301, the Volt SMG, but the thing that I prefer the most about this location is the crafter. The way that the crafter works is that for the current season of play, two of the most prominent guns for skirmishes are inside the crafter. So opening up every single chest, getting the actual little craft canisters allows you to craft something out of there. And it could be an upgrade to your shields. It could be some ammo, could be some shields or medkits, but you could also get one of the popular guns. You've got the Hemlock Burst Rifle, the Alternator SMG. Both of them are solid options. So in this instance, if a team doesn't get exactly what they're looking for from their drops, they have a consistent loadout at any given time if they just go to the crafting station. So I look forward to seeing how this team adjusts as they move forward. And we're going to see if we can see the fights that are going on right now. So we've got Blue Springs South High School team number 2. Early on taking this fight, an amazing use of the thermite grenade to just cut off the player from team number 16, Central number 2. Immediately, an excellent showcase of why grenades are such a powerful weapon inside the game of Apex Legends, because we saw it a couple times, right, where the bunker compositions, they're very strong. The grenade just completely blows up everything on the other side of whatever gets hit by it. So that thermite grenade just completely cut off one of the members of Central, and now they're slowly whittling down the other members of the team. And a down coming from mid-air from the Conduit player with the longbow. Excellent snipe that came out. It's one of the reasons why you'll see Octane players, especially at the higher levels play, generally transition to other characters because it's so one-dimensional. So that was an excellent shot coming from the conduit player on Blue Spring South to immediately take an advantage going into the rest of the game, get a couple of eliminations. And now you've got the Octane player coming from the likes of Central, needing to play his life and see if he can't try and get some placement points. Because this isn't the way that you want to start your game, but unfortunately for them, it's kind of what they've got going on. So, see if we can't get to this fight happening at the edge of the map. We've got Joplin High School at the top of Down Beast. This is really what I wanted to see going into this third drop on Stormpoint, because we've seen so much focus on the lower side of the map. Now we're seeing what Down Beast actually looks like. This is a very popular location for teams to drop to because it's got so much verticality, so many opportunities, and now Joplin's seeing if they can't get a sneaky little couple shots off as these teams fight. And we're actually going to see if we can't transition to these teams right now. We've got team number 19, the other Central R3 team, seeing if they can't defeat Hollister. I mentioned before that Hollister's done really well with this bunker style composition, but this is what I was talking about before with the grenades. Immediately, despite the fact that they were able to bunker down with the catalyst, a thermite grenade immediately broke it, and now they're just kind of stuck here as the skirmish heavy playstyle from Central R3 is going to attempt to knock them down. And just constantly going from both sides of the building so that there's no opportunities for this Hollister team to reset. And despite the fact that this team had a very, very, very strong drop number 2, it looks like they might go down early. And we're seeing from Central R3, this is actually a wonderful mechanic that they're showcasing from their Newcastle player. You saw that little gold shield that he had on. That actually speeds up the revive of the opponent. And because it's a Newcastle player here, he's able to use his character passive to try and get the revives off on his team. But unfortunately, a third party coming from the likes of Joplin, we saw them at the very beginning. They were biding their time, just waiting to see how that fight broke out between Hollister and Central R3, and they managed to take the first set of kills. And now they set up, they get back on top of the Down Beast, take their eliminations where they lie, and now they're transitioning out for the rest of the game. And we're seeing Hollister, despite the fact that they immediately lost a lot of their members, they actually managed to sneak out, sneak away so that they can try and get these revives off, or maybe even just play for these endgame circles. So it was a good work by Hollister to get out of that situation. Great work by Joplin to third party and wait for the fight to really break out before they took it. And it was a great execution by the likes of Central R3 to get out with their lives, despite the fact that Joplin was sitting there waiting for them. And that's why it's so difficult to try and finish off these teams, get these eliminations, because there is so many opportunities for these teams to just get away, play their life as much as possible. So we're going to go on back to seeing what Republic High School is, and this is one of the most centralized locations that you've got here in Stormpoint. Many endgame circles end up revolving around this location, and you can see it very early on. As I mentioned in previous drops, incredibly wide open space. There's so many angles that you have to be looking out for, so many pieces of natural cover between the trucks, the rocks, the buildings around the place, the trees, that it's kind of scary sometimes trying to figure out where people are. So you're seeing that these buildings that Republic is taking early on are going to be one of these central figures for a potential endgame circle, because there's so many wide open spaces, so many rocks to hide around. Having a building where it doesn't really matter where your opponents are, you can just back out around a corner, get a reset off, it's going to be something that a lot of teams are looking forward to. We're seeing Team 10 here, Hollister High School, just making a run back, seeing if they can't continue surviving into other endgame circles. And we're seeing a fight about to take place here. See if we can't jump into it with Team 8 and the rest of them going on. We're seeing the Scout. This is the first time that we've actually showcased the Scout on the day. It's similar to the 30-30, except shoots a little bit faster, does a little bit less damage per shot. And we're going to see if North County can manage to take this fight well, because you're seeing a ton of different third parties are coming out from across the map. And the team that they were trying to fight here, Sykeston, along with a couple others, they're going to see if they can't try and get this elimination on these teams going on the balloon. Unfortunately, just can't get the last couple shots off. But that's one of the risk rewards with the balloon, is that you have to go up in a straight line. So if a team can manage to get those eliminations early, it looks a little bit rough. So we've got Team 9 right here, Web City. They're going up around the back, seeing if they can't sneak in, see if they can't get this elimination on the team that we were just focusing on before, but it looks like they just missed them. So now we're seeing them get pushed in by Storm, as a ton of teams are set up around here. And now this is where legends are made. The rotation into this circle, it's going to be heavily contested for every single team here. And because of the position that Web City's in, nobody's looking towards them, right? They're able to stop people from behind, see if they can't get a rotate from the side. And another excellent showcase for why you're choosing Bangalore in these rotations. Because the second he started taking shots, this Bangalore player immediately popped the smoke, run away, see if they can't rotate out. And then they've got the catalyst, so that if the fight continues, you've got the wall for the next fight. All right, see if we can't get a hold of this team that was rotating. We got Sykeston, who seems like they're getting forced out by one of the teams. And a character I haven't had an opportunity to talk about before has been the Horizon. Horizon's a character that we've seen a couple times. We saw her ult go off where it pulled that person in. We've seen it go off, her tactical. But it allows you to get a lot of verticality for your entire team. So we're seeing right now that Sykeston High School is kind of forced into this really awkward fight because they're on top of this building. So we're seeing Hollister manage to get their revives off, and directly above them, we've got 18 different angles for this poor Sykeston roster. And they realize that this is a bad fight to take. There's no grenades that are coming out to try and eliminate them, so they're just going to try to get out of here, take the balloon, find a better position. They know a couple people are in that oasis to the right side. They know that some teams are on top of the buildings in front of them, so might as well try and take this fight on the other side of the map, where they know that people aren't presently trying to eliminate them. Try to use that Horizon tactical, get on top of the building, see if they can't get some cheeky picks off on the team that is across from them. And Team 17 here, we've got Blue Spring South, team that they're fighting, trying to hold their ground. Immediately their conduit takes a ton of damage early on, and they're forced to back up. They're using their catalyst walls, see if they can't hold their ground a little bit better. But it's a bad situation that they're looking into right now. And now, heading back to Republic High School, they're on the other side of the circle that I spoke about before, and it's a very dangerous position to be in. You see a ton of teams rotating around, not having a building for this mid-game going into the fourth ring. It's a bit of a struggle. You see them looking at where Blue Spring South was currently holed up, who's currently getting pushed. You see them fighting against this bunker-style composition with the Rampart and the Gibraltar, but they need to be able to focus on staying alive as much as possible, because it's so easy to get third-partied. So they need to take one fight and then try to survive, because as you saw it, I mentioned it just a couple seconds ago, the second they took the fight, they immediately got rushed. So now they have to figure out exactly what it is they want to do. Do they try to push the building where they know a fight's taking place? Do they try to take the fight against the people who just try to push on them? Do they try to take the corner on the team that they already had the jump on? It's really a decision that is going to make or break how this team's outlook looks for the rest of the game, because there's still 15 teams left going into this fourth ring, and we're already seeing Republic making that decision early on, catching a great rotation to try and get to this building while everybody else is focused on fighting. But unfortunately, the building that they're taking, already in zone. So we're seeing that a couple fights take place right here. We've got Marshall, a team that has consistently gotten to a bunch of end games before. Because of the current fight, they go out early, don't even get a top 10 finish. So a team that was so consistent is already out. And we've got Republic High School playing around the fact that they've got this Gibraltar shield really well, managing to get the revive as they're getting pushed off by a couple other players. And the Horizon ult, a little bit wide, couldn't manage to get it off. And now their own Horizon for Republic are helping them get out. Unfortunately, they've got to lose one of their players, but they're showcasing exactly one of the great things about Horizon. They throw down the ult, they throw down a couple grenades, throw everybody into a small conjoined area, and then try and get the elimination. But the Horizon on the other side of the map manages to keep the team alive. Ooh, but another showcase that I actually didn't see before. The tactical coming out from the Horizon actually threw up the fuse so that the fuse, instead of dying, instead of being forced to leave him behind, they managed to pick him up. And they used the Gibraltar shield to reset the fight, and they live another day. We've got Desmet just around the corner. They managed to take out one of the teams here. Top 10 teams remaining. We're going to see how these teams fight around this. And we're seeing Team 13, we got Repmo here. They really wanted to take that balloon, but unfortunately, right as they go to rotate, their Horizon player gets knocked. So now they're super split. The Fuse manages to get out, and a bunch of fights taking place right here. The Gibraltar unfortunately can't get out. That might be the end of their time here today. And the Horizon trying to spin in a circle, don't want to get hit by the shot, but unfortunately the spinning actually takes them outside of zone and they almost go down. But they're now going to play around this corner, two-person endgame, see if they can't try and red it out, see if they can't get a couple wins. Unfortunately, this is a very awkward position to be in for the Republic team, because they know that there's a ton of people around them. They're split up. There's not a ton of things going for them right now, but they can get that reset, see if they can't survive. And they're walking into Blue Springs High School right now, who has a very strong bunker set up, fighting against a team inside the building. Because of that Bloodhound, they were able to see who was exactly in those corners. So instead of just running in, potentially taking a ton of damage, now they're able to methodically take out their opponents. And team number 5, Van Horn High School, is now lost one more player going into this endgame. And we're seeing an endgame that, going into the fourth circle, had 15 teams left, now only has 7 teams remaining. And Team 6, we've got Sykeston High School directly on top of the building that we just saw Blue Springs High School in. And this endgame, around the wall, where there's a ton of verticality, ton of buildings, so getting to endgame isn't exactly the most difficult thing in the world for each of these teams. But the second that your building gets thrown out of zone, like we're seeing team number 6 here with Sykeston, it's going to become very awkward, because then you have to rotate across a giant wide open chasm while you've got teams shooting down on them from all over the place. So what Sykeston is going to be looking for right now with their composition, because it's so skirmish heavy, because they have the Bangalore Catalyst Horizon that we've seen so many times, they're going to attempt to force the other opponents out of their positions first before they're forced to rotate. And you're seeing right now, throw down the grenade. See if they can't flush out this one player that they know for sure is in this corner. Try and get the elim, try and get a top 6 placement off it. And unfortunately, just a little bit off, and the Fuse managed to get out. This is the team that we were watching before, Republic High School, managing to get out of dodge and survive another day. But unfortunately, the Fuse goes down, and now the last player from Republic High School, our last showcase team, is looking pretty in an awkward space as they unfortunately go down. Top 6 placement is better than what they've had in the past, but it's not ideal. And now we've got North County, a team that we haven't looked at a lot right now, but they finally managed to set up that bunker. Last drop, we saw them get eliminated earlier, and it was just the Watson player in the endgame. But this is what they chose the composition for. They've got the Newcastle, they got the Watson. It's a very strong bunker where they can set up the Newcastle ult to essentially act like you're inside a building. And then they set up the Watson ultimate so that they recharge their shields. They prevent any other opponents from getting them with their grenades because of the showcase of it. And now we'll see how they do. 4 teams left. We got Team 8 here in a pretty good position. Still have their Newcastle ultimate up. Managed to get the resets, and now their Watson player with the triple take, attempting to get a little bit of poke off on their opponents with only 3 teams left. see who the other teams are. We got Team 1, Francel North. This is the first time that they've made it to the end game. This is a team that we knew was going to be very strong going into this, and they've maintained this top building edge for this end game circle. They've got the cow stick, so pushing into them is ill-advised. They're able to maintain this location because I don't believe any of the other teams actually have a horizon to get on top of this building. So it's looking like Francel North is the team to beat for this endgame circle. And then we've got the last two teams duking out on the bottom side. You've got North County attempting to figure out which team to push, because if you take the fight against the other team on the low ground, North County could just get third-partied by Francel North and the game's over. But if you focus entirely on the Francel North team, the team that's stuck there in the corner might just win outright. So we're seeing really a chess match between these three teams, saying, hey, who's chicken? Who's willing to go first? Because right now, no team really has the resources to push into each other. We're seeing Francel North has these grenades, but they don't want to use them this early if they can avoid it. I'm seeing on the other side a Rampart Watson, whereas this team here, North County, has a Newcastle Watson. Two incredibly strong endgame fights where you can just slowly whittle down your opponents without taking damage yourself. And we're seeing Francel North is actually making the first move. They go in with the Horizon. If anybody pushes them, they throw the grenade, immediately toss a caustic trap on top of it, and they just throw the kitchen sink at their opponents, and this is the go-in button for the other team that's alive. And Francel North playing around their shields pretty well, but unfortunately they go down. Now there's two squads left. We only have North County versus Joplin High School, team that we haven't seen since the very beginning of the game. They play around their bunkers super well. They wait for Francel North to make the first call, and now there's only one player left for North County, and Joplin, a team that had 8 kills for the entirety of the regular season, is looking like they're about to take game number 3, but not if North County has anything to say about it. But unfortunately, they go down, and Joplin takes drop number 3, a team that anybody, if you saw them in the regular season, would have said that they had no chance to even make playoffs, manages to get the 3rd drop win. Excellent showcase from each and every team there. Francel North pulling out all the stops in order to use their caustic and their Horizon ults together to try and defeat North County there as fast as possible. And Joplin, as we saw them in the early game, they immediately know when to strike. We saw them at the very beginning of this game. Third party, 2 other teams, I believe it was Central and Hollister. We saw them know exactly when to take the fight that they wanted. And now here in the end game, they just waited for Francel North to make the first move. They did not have to push into FHN. They did not have to push into North County. But they saw exactly when FHN made the call, hey, it's time to go in. And that's when they decided it's our time. So congratulations, Joplin, for taking that 3rd drop. Congratulations, Francel North, for getting that top 3 finish and showcasing why they're one of the best teams here. And congratulations to North County right there in that end game. They finally got their composition what they wanted with that bunker, and it got them a top 2 placement in this drop. So we're seeing a ton of new teams get to that end game. We're seeing Joplin, we're seeing Francel North, we're seeing North County. Completely different top 3 than what our previous drops were. We saw Marshall, a team that was consistently getting those placements in the first 2 drops, actually end up not even getting a top 10 placement. So that will call it for Storm Point for right now. And because of that, our next set of maps will be World's Edge. So excellent showcase from our teams from the first 3 set of drops. And now it's time for a fresh start. Right? Obviously, the points are going to stay over, but for the teams, they're going to have an hour to prep while we go on this lunch break, and then think about what it is, what adjustments they need to make going into World's Edge to try and close out this finals. So congratulations to those teams, and we'll see you in 1 hour. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Missouri State Esport Federation Winter Bash. Today's title of choice has been Apex Legends. And after 3 drops, after everything that we've got from Stormpoint, this is where we currently are. We've got Waynesville High School sitting in as the 1 seed. They've been the number 1 team since they got that first place finish and nearly tied our overall point record for the entire season that's still held by DeSmet Jesuit with 34 points. So they have been by far the best team after 3 drops because of that first drop performance. But since then, they haven't gotten close to the peak that they had. So the question becomes, did Waynesville show their card too early? Because they went from 29 points, potentially being enough to end the drop the championship after 3 drops, to now barely edging out ahead of the other teams who are slowly catching up as time goes on. But that's not to say that Waynesville's completely run out of gas, right? We've had an hour-long break for these teams to nourish up, get ready for the next set of drops. So Waynesville right now has the potential to get back to form for what they had in drop 1, figure out what went wrong in drops 2 and 3, why did they get eliminated early, why can't they get the same success, and make that adjustment. But for right now, they're still the number 1 team and on the cusp of potentially making it to championship point in the next few drops. Closely behind them at second place right now is North County. Right now, they have silently snuck up on the top end of this competition. For the first 2 drops, every time that we watched them, it was them running away after some type of bad fight happened that we weren't able to see off stream. But they really came into their own for drop number 3 and ended up closing it out, getting a second place finish, finally getting to end game with their full composition, and even managing to get 10 eliminations, right? They doubled their entire point total because of that, right? So they went into drop number 3 with 5 eliminations. Now suddenly they are one of the teams that you're looking at, because that was a 19-point game from them going into drop number 3. And that's how easy it is for these teams still to this point going into the latter half of drops. It's still anyone's game, right? Say Parkway South or any of the teams on the lower end of the spectrum managed to get this win with a couple eliminations. Suddenly they're going from, hey, who knows, right? We still got to find our ground, to we're one of the teams to beat today. And we'll talk about that in a little bit with Joplin, because going into drop number 3, they were one of those teams. And suddenly, now they're a top 6 team, all because of that one win that they've got and everything that they've done to set up for it. Our third place team, winner of drop number 2, St. Louis University High School. Drop number 3 didn't go exactly how they planned it to, but they're still one of the teams that have the entire championship in the driver's seat. They've shown that they can get a win. They've shown that they can do it in a dominant fashion. They just need to continue that momentum, similar to Waynesville, similar to North County. And in the same exact conversation is Marshall High School. Before this drop, they were the number 3 team, and the only 2 teams ahead of them had previously won games. And that's because they were consistently getting these higher level placements. They're one of the few teams that have managed to actually get above the 10-point elimination threshold, which shows that, hey, when they take their fights, they're winning them. And it's just that however they're taking the fight in endgame, it's just not working out for them, right? So that's an adjustment they can make going forward. But in drop number 3, they got eliminated pretty early on. So that lead that they had built up over a lot of these other teams has dwindled. And it's going to be interesting to see how a team that has consistently had success here in this tournament reacts to having an off game. Because having 1 or 2 bad games isn't what's going to make or break any of these teams' seasons. but how they react to it and how they adjust is going to be where it's really important. And for a team like Marshall, going into the second set of drops, where we're moving forward into World's Edge, it'll be interesting to see how them, more than most other teams, adjust to this new map. Are they going to be able to consistently get these top 3 placements? Can they get over that hurdle? Because Marshall's also in a unique position where if they have a game like Waynesville had in drop number 1, they could be at championship point right now. And Sykeston is another team that's in a similar boat, because Sykeston hasn't been one of our focus teams yet. We've seen them every so often. They've gotten a lot of eliminations off stream, and we've consistently seen them in good positions going towards the end games, like in circle number 4, circle number 5, as we begin wrapping it up. And it's really been unlucky for a team like Sykeston, because it hasn't been like they're in the center of zone and the circle keeps going to them and everybody has to fight into them. It's been Sykeston needing to run out of their own comfort zone, out of their cover, and then they get eliminated. So it'll be interesting seeing if their luck changes over the next few drops and how they react to the new map. And then Joplin. There are winners from drop number 3, and I'm not going to lie to you. Their eliminations right now of 10 is more than they had during the entire regular season combined. So they had 10 opportunities to do that during regular season. They've only had 3 today. So this is a team that has absolutely blown up past expectations, and now is one of the favorites to continue moving on because of that win, because of their the way that they reacted in drop number 3, how they managed to, both in early and late game, third party in an effective manner, use their bunker style composition well, and get their eliminations where it lies. They weren't overextending past their boundaries. They didn't let the fact that the first 2 drops didn't go their way and they barely made any points get to them. Because I'll be honest, I was looking through the team chats in our server for the match, and their coach actually called that they were going to win drop number 3. They said, "Hey guys, we're going to win." And guess what? It worked. So I'm very excited to see how they continue moving forward, along with all these other teams that are in top 5, because all of them are in positions to win. And none of them are more ready to do that than the 7th place team right now, Francis Howell North. Because Francis Howell North, if we just look at the regular season standings, was by far the best team. By far. Right? 180 points. They averaged a top 2 placement during the season. They had 5 wins, which was the most out of any other team. And I'm not going to say that what they've been doing today is a disappointment, because I believe that the level of competition has been evened out across the board. It's been seeing exactly why this team has been one of the most dominant ones that I'm still looking for. Because they've been running a very unique composition that is very Francis Howell North, right? It's very unique to them. We have not spoken about the character Caustic, and I believe any other context besides talking about Francis Howell North. And they almost very, very closely won that 3rd drop. They had a great game plan where their Horizon ulted, threw in 3 grenades, cut off escape routes, and then they used their Caustic traps in their ult to try and win that fight. And then Joplin came in, stole the glory, and managed to take out North County themselves for an extra few eliminations. But Francis Howell North has always been on the cusp of that. And I think we've just seen them get unlucky in the early and mid games. But this is a team that has that potential to just absolutely steal the entire rest of the tournament away if the other teams forget about how dominant this team is. So I'm excited to see what they do. Then we've got Van Horn High School, who I think is in a similar boat to Sykeston, where we've consistently seen them make it to these mid to late game fights. We just haven't seen them get out on top of them. And it shows in their eliminations, right? They have a top 10 point total, but the least out of any of the top 10 in terms of eliminations. So that means they're getting to these top placements. They just aren't able to overcome that hurdle of when other teams are pushing into them. So going into World's Edge, completely new map, it's time for them to mentally reset and move forward and attempt to get this win. because I think they do have potential. Ninth place, we've got Hollister. I think they got incredibly unlucky in the third drop. They went down beast. They win with the same exact game plan that got them such a high placement in drop two in the top two placement. But it was early game. So when their opponent teams of Joplin and Central R3 pushed them, there was very little room for error. But even then, even when everything went poorly for Hollister, they still managed to reset with one person barely scratching out of that fight alive and still getting three players to endgame with some reboots. We didn't see them end up making their final placement, but there is potential there. And then our last of our top 10 is Blue Springs South High School number 2, which, very similar to Francis Howell North, I feel still have not unlocked their potential. They had 142 points during the regular season, averaged a top 4 placement, had, I believe, the second most eliminations in the entire season. And I think that's what's been really separating them today, is that they haven't been able to get those eliminations like they were in the past. So while they're still a top 10 team, the vast majority of their points have been through eliminations, right? Over half their points. So I'd like to see them consistently get to this end game, even if they have to play a little bit slower to try and get those eliminations as they come to them. Because maybe it's just that they've been trying to force the issue, but I think this is a team very similar to Francis Howell North that they can just blow up this entire tournament. So I look forward to seeing what they do. And then 11th to 20th place, got Webb City right there, completely tied with Blue Springs, has more limbs. I think this team has that potential. Blue Springs South number 1, one of our last chance qualifier teams. I think they are still attempting to find their footing. You got DeSmet, who we've seen them as a focus team a couple times. But it's always been them pushing in, it feels like. So I'd like to see what happens if they get the advantage, right? They get the high ground. Teams have to try and fight them. I think that might be the difference maker. You got Blue Springs High School. I think they need to get a couple more eliminations. I think that's a team that we've seen them, especially in early game fights, where they're getting good loadouts. I just want to see what happens in the future. Then we've got both Central R3s at 15th and 16th place, tied in placement, tied in points. And I think that the adjustments that they're making over the next few minutes is going to be paramount to how the rest of the day goes. Because there's still time for every team that's here in the bottom 5. Republic High School, Eureka, SLU High School number 2, and Parkway South. There's so much potential with these teams. But we are getting close to the end, right? We're halfway through. It's still anyone's game. One single win is enough to put you into the conversation. But if these teams don't manage to get that top 3 placement very soon, it's gonna be kind of a grim outlook for the remainder of the day. Because say Waynesville, say Marshall, say Joplin managed to get this win in this next game, suddenly they're on championship point threshold. So you, as right now one of these teams who are underneath 10 points, you kind of need to win this game. You kind of need to consistently get these high placements now, because otherwise the entire tournament might end by drop 5. So trying to make sure that you're still making your mark, I think, is going to be the key for these lower 5 teams. And with that, we are only a few minutes away before we begin drop number 4 at World's Edge. So, as one last reminder, these teams need to get to 50 points to win or be the best team at the end of 6 drops. So if they get 50 points, they get a win. After that point, they win outright on any of these World's Edge maps. And if they don't, then it's whichever team has the most points. So I'm very excited to see how these teams lock in over the next hour and a half around that and see exactly how we wrap up for today. So I will see you in a couple minutes as we get into drop number 4, World's Edge, coming to you shortly. All right, our teams are loading into World's Edge. I am very excited to see the adjustments our teams have made over the past hour as they rejuvenated, maybe grabbed some lunch, maybe got some more practice in, because World's Edge is an entirely different beast. I'm excited to see if the bunker-style compositions that we saw from North County and Joplin in the last game continue to have success like they did before. If we're going to see more like Bangalore's Horizons, more of a skirmish-heavy playstyle. I think this is a complete mental reset for every single team. I think you have to go into these next 3 drops as if the first 3 had never happened, because the adjustments you made to the map, to the playstyle, are going to be less relevant now than they were before because of the fact that you're on an entirely brand new map. So, as we transition the game, I'm excited to see exactly what happens. We're going from bottom left to top right. You already see on this mini map, there's a ton of lava on the lower sections of the map, ton of ice on the top right of the map. It's a very cataclysmic type map, so if you're used to the beautiful sights before, you might be a little bit surprised at what we've got going on today, and we're already seeing teams begin to drop directly on top of each other. I think we're going to see team number 14 take a fight early on. Apologies for the lack of no music. I have to make a bit of an adjustment, and we already have our first player going down for Slough High number 2. Not exactly how you want to start this new set of drops, and the Bangalore is already eliminated. That's one team down. That's Blue Spring South number 2 having a little bit of a statement, I would say, for how they want to start this next game. They immediately take Thermal Station, a hot drop for them, and they showcase why they're one of the top 2 teams here. And we're going to see Team 20 already. Joplin, one of our champions from our first 3 drops, already is facing a little bit of struggle as one of their players are down. It's kind of hard to set up the bunker this early on, and we're seeing Team 17, the team that they're playing against, is Blue Spring South number 2. So both Blue Springs being very aggressively early on. That might be an adjustment that they decided to make because of how the first 3 drops went. Joplin, a team that we know has potential to just win outright. We've seen it before. This was a good call by this Blue Spring South team if they can get out alive, because if this adjustment they made leads to them losing a player early on, who knows if it's worth it. But that's a very interesting decision from this team. We're seeing team number 15 here, Blue Springs High School. They made an adjustment to go over to Crypto. Crypto is one of those info agents where there's a ton of intel that you can get by throwing around his drone, but we're already seeing them on the back foot. Who are they running away from? It's Marshall High School. Marshall is that team that we spoke about before where they were consistently getting a top 3. We were getting a top 3 placement in the first couple games. However, they did struggle a little bit. So the fact that they managed to make Blue Springs run away to a different location means that they get all of this by themselves. And they also made a bit of an adjustment. They decided to go the Seer, decided to go the Valkyrie. Valkyrie is a character very similar to the drop balloons that we've had before, where her ultimate is designed to get her team out of bad spots and rotate them across the map. So I think that might help them get a little bit more consistency in endgame fights, because we saw with the Loba, it was able to get them there, it was able to get them the resets, but it wasn't able to actually provide them as much value as they might have been hoping for in the endgame fights. And looking at the map, we're seeing a ton of fights happen here at the very top, but as I say that, we've got a fight going on here for Blue Springs, or for Marshall, where they early on lost one of their players, and it's team number 12, Parkway South, already getting one eliminate, or getting one down, attempting to get the Seer also knocked. And it's just 2 players, and this drop is enough to actually put them in a great position for this fight. They've completely evened out the fact that it was a 2v3, and unfortunately go down. That was an excellent play by the conduit player here for Marshall High School. It was a very scary situation. And unfortunately for them, what gets bad gets worse, because even though Parkway South goes down there, they will not be forgotten, as Blue Springs High School is now here to save the day and try and get some of these elims themselves. And we're seeing the other team, Marshall, just have to cut their losses and run. Very early on, we have 2 teams eliminated, and Marshall is not in a good spot. We're seeing Blue Springs High School try and see if they can try and close this out, try and get another placement. But they run directly into the likes of DeSmet Jesuit. Where they decide to go over to a more bunker-style composition. They've got the Bangalore, so they still have a lot of skirmish-heavy gameplay going on. And we'll see if they're able to get this drop on Blue Springs High School. Now, because we haven't seen Crypto before, that is an ability that is designed to kind of shred some shields. So this aggression coming out from DeSmet Jesuit is quickly responded with a ton of damage. So we're seeing if the fight by Blue Springs with this very incredibly good bunker they've got going on with the Watson shield regenerator, which has already gone down, unfortunately for them. We're going to see them try to make a decision right now, right? They've got 2 choices. They have to either run away or take the fight, because the longer and longer this fight goes, the more chances are for a third party to try and come and grab them. And we're seeing Blue Springs make the decision, the call, hey, we need to get out of here. Let's just move on with our lives, try to regroup, see if we can live to fight another day. Well, DeSmet Jesuit is trying their best to run them down. Now, this is a playstyle we've seen from DeSmet the first 3 drops, where what they've been trying to do is run on their opponents, see if they can overwhelm them, and use the fact that they have this rampart in Gibraltar to react to any situation that comes along for them, where they don't necessarily need to be inside a building like that Blue Springs High School team does with the Watson, because Rampart is able to build up the zone directly in front of them. Gibraltar can respond to any situation with the shield, so they're able to take the fight on their terms in most situations, as long as they don't get knocked down early like the Marshall High School team did earlier in the map. And we're seeing them just continue to chase down Blue Springs to see if they can't get that pick. And meanwhile, while we're there, we're also seeing a couple fights go on with Team 9 across the map. But this is a very interesting fight, because both these teams, I don't necessarily know that Blue Springs wants to take this fight, but they know that they're just hemorrhaging resources as time goes on. And it's kind of impressed to see how much resources DeSmet is actually willing to spend into this. They've used a couple grenades. They're now being forced to use their shield batteries and a ton of other resources to continue this chase. So I'm interested to see how much they're willing to spend for this, while Blue Springs is trying their best to run away, try and reposition. Because now we've seen Blue Springs have to run across essentially half the map with a team on their back. And we'll make a transition over to another team while we're here to see exactly what's going on around the map. Let's go over to team number 5. As we're seeing another very popular composition from the likes of Van Horn, where they've got the Bangalore, they've got the Horizon, very skirmish-heavy team, and they've got the Catalyst. So we saw this to great effect with the DeSmet team in drop number 2, where you're constantly getting these resets like this Horizon is right now, and they're currently burning down this other team while they're in the sky. If they can get away, that'd be really good for them. Team number 6, Sykeston, unfortunately loses 1 player, but at least they get to continue they get to live another day. And unfortunately, it's a Rampart that goes down. So they've got 2 players that are still incredibly good at skirmishing. We've seen the Horizon, we've seen the Bangalore. I don't need to harp on it. But unfortunately, that Rampart is a character we've seen used to great effect by other teams, where the ability to take that fight and constantly reset your shields has been very powerful. It's why we've been seeing it by so many of these other teams. You see now Web City has one. Unfortunately, their Ashe goes down, but it looks like she might be very close to getting rebooted here with the Lifeline. And it's been very interesting to see the Web City approach to these matches, because they are a top 10 team right now, but they've been playing a very defensive style composition. So the fact that they've gotten so many eliminations has been pretty interesting to see, because their only really aggressive character has been the Ashe, right? Rampart is better known for stalling things out, slowing things down. You've got a Lifeline who's entirely designed to help you slow down games. And then you got the Ashe who's just teleporting people across the world. So transitioning outwards, let's see how team number 16 is here. We got Central, R3 number 2. Looks like they just managed to get an elimination, taking a fight here. Great shot from the Peacekeeper from long range, and unfortunately it looks like Harmful, their Mirage, is going down. And this is an interesting composition to see from the likes of Central R3. They've kind of got mixes of bunker, mixes of skirmish, and I don't know how much it's working out for them. Their Mad Maggie is being forced to run away. Luckily for them, at the exact time that they decide to back up, another team comes from zone to try and give them a little bit of clearance. So we've got Francis Howell North here, who chose a very aggressive composition with the Wraith, with the Catalyst, being forced to actually back up because of the introduction of that Rampart team around the corner. So what they're going to try to do right now is go around that giant rock, see if they can't finish off that team that they were just shooting at, and they do manage to get the elimination. So unfortunately for that team, no placement points for today for this 4th drop. But for Francis Howell North, a great start as they managed to get that squad wipe. And we're seeing the other team that was in that fight was actually Eureka High School. So it was great timing for them. Unfortunate for the likes of Central, because Eureka manages to come on in, snipe one of those kills, and they're starting to get some of their placement points. We're seeing they're also going a very defensive style composition. You're really seeing a huge dichotomy between the 2 play styles today, where you've got a bunch of teams going this Rampart, sometimes pairing it with a Gibraltar, pairing it with a Watson, and Eureka actually chooses to pair it with a Loba, so that every single time they take a fight, they can just regenerate all their health as much as possible. And seeing some fights going on right now, let's look at the likes of Hollister, who looks like they're being forced to run away as they're getting hunted down by Blue Spring South. And Blue Spring South is currently in the middle of a bit of a pinch between a couple teams, looking to try and get out of there, get to a high ground, see if they can't shoot down on some of their opponents here. But unfortunately, they're jumping right in on top of another team. It's going to be North County, one of our top 3 teams from the last game, hoping to defend their zone, make sure that no other teams want to fight on top of them. It was a great showcase by them, because them taking that fight there, ooh, great crack on the team that's across the way on top of the epicenter. But the reason why they took that fight there, it wasn't necessarily to get the eliminations on Blue Spring South. It was more so to prevent them from jumping on top of them. And what we're seeing is that because of their early aggression, Blue Spring South didn't really feel comfortable taking the fight, right? They had to regen. But now that Blue Spring South is in a position to fight back, they immediately pay it back to North County, force them to use some of their meds, and now are in a great position in this endgame. You're seeing a ton of high grounds here that they're just shooting down from as teams are attempting to rotate in, because this endgame circle is very unkind to a lot of these teams in the outer edge. And we're seeing that North County actually decided to make the rotation into zone, getting shot by Blue Springs South on the high ground, needing to get inside this building. But unfortunately, the building they're trying to go into is already called for by Webb City, one of the teams that we looked at a little bit earlier. And we're going to see if North County decides, hey, is it worth it for us to try and break this bunker to get inside this building, or do we just rotate out? And right now they're trying to make the call that, hey, we need this location. This is where endgame is going to be. And they immediately get punished for it by the Rampart player, who manages to quickly get an elimination while North County is trying their best to find a position inside this circle. And so they decide to just go to the high ground. While they lose their teammate, they can at least try and share this space for a little bit with the likes of Webb City. And as we go around, we're going to see Central R3, one of our last chance qualifier teams, manage to get it down with this R301, right? That's fully loaded out. And they're actually taking a very aggressive position. You're seeing a Revenant, which is another character we have not seen a ton of today. And this Newcastle player with the Mozambique of all guns sniping away, managing to get an elimination, get a top 10 placement. But we are seeing a Revenant. That's a character we have not seen much of today. It's a character where they can climb any surface that they want. They're able to get extra shields compared to anybody else with their ultimate. But ultimately is a character that is somewhat individualized, right? It's more of a ranked pick because it doesn't have many ways to support its teammates. And unfortunately, he doesn't even get a chance to pop his ultimate as the third party comes through. And the Newcastle for this team is just forced to run away, and they can't get out. So right now, the Bloodhound is just hoping that while every one of the other teams fights each other, that he can try to get a sneaky revive. And Blue Springs South, they've played this position on this high ground wonderfully, constantly third partying, able to force their opponents to use a lot of resources they otherwise wouldn't need to. And now they just need to try and get the eliminations because they are in the right position to get to endgame. They just need to be able to isolate these fights, take them one at a time, and see if they can't get the elims where they are. But unfortunately, it looks like a few of their elims got sniped away from them by Team 4 Waynesville, a name that we have not called out in quite some time. And it looks like two of the big dogs are now fighting, Waynesville versus Blue Springs South, for control of this high ground at the top side of the map. And it looks like most of Waynesville's grenades and other resources have been for naught as Blue Springs South just rotates out and tries to regroup. But they're still being forced out. They're actually being forced into zone where they're going to get eliminated. They are exclusively playing not to give the points to Waynesville. It's an interesting call. We'll see if it ends up working out for them, because Waynesville is one of those teams where if they get this win in 10 kills, they could just be on championship point. But unfortunately, right now, Waynesville is actually stuck between a rock and a hard place as Webb City with a bow is just shooting fish in a barrel. It's like they're skeet shooting, but unfortunately they're losing a ton of resources in this fight, and the ash goes down and they do not have a chance to set up what their comp is strongest at, which is the Rampart turret. So it's just purely a fight to survive as there are only 3 teams left. Webb City managed to get their top 3 placement, but it looks like it might just be that for them as they are stuck between 2 other teams. And team number 7, D. Smet Jesuit, manages to get the win. They take out both teams at the same time. Congratulations to DeSmet. They played in a very aggressive game. We saw them chasing Blue Springs High School for several minutes in the early game, and they managed to transition their position over to a new location. And managed to take out a couple teams, get that first place finish. We've seen them be super aggressive, and it's finally worked out for them. So congratulations to DeSmet. And we'll go into map number 5 real shortly in the next 10 minutes. See you soon. Alrighty, welcome back as we have just wrapped up drop number 4, heading into drop number 5, second to last potential drop for the day. We have some new and exciting things that have happened. We have our first team get past the championship point threshold. With Waynesville High School eclipsing 50 points, they are now eligible for the first win condition, which is the championship point threshold. Get over 50 points and then get a win. We've seen Waynesville do it in the past, right? They won the very first drop of the day. We just saw them get incredibly close in this drop, taking out the likes of Blue Springs South before they ultimately got pinched by a few teams. As that end game was incredibly wide open, it was anybody's game, and DeSmet ended up taking the win. They are now the first team to eclipse the championship point threshold. What that means is that they are the only team that has the ability to end this set prior to drop number 6. Every other team, they have to either play out this game, get past the 50-point threshold, and then be the one that wins drop number 6, or be the team with the most placement points at the end. Waynesville is the only team that can win drop number 5 and win the tournament outright. With that win, though, DeSmet Jesuit has leapfrogged to the number 2 team. We've seen them be incredibly aggressive over the past few drops, and that end game, super wide open. They managed to be one of the teams at the far end, eliminate 2 other teams at the same exact time to get the win, and quite a number of eliminations. I questioned a couple of their decisions when they were chasing Blue Springs for so long, but now they are a top 2 team. If they win this drop, they are now over a championship point threshold, which means drop number 6, if them or Waynesville or any other team that gets across 50 points wins, it doesn't matter about placement. It's all about who gets that win at that point. So we'll see how that works out. But for right now, they're still 10 points behind and playing a little bit of catch up. France Howell North, I told it before, incredibly strong team, and they've showcased exactly why. They managed to get a very high placement this drop, leapfrog all the way from 8th place up to 3rd. We knew it was going to happen, and now it's clutch time for them, because if they do not win this drop and Waynesville does, their chance to win the entire tournament is gone. So we're going to see how these other teams focus up as time goes on. The likes of North County. We've seen Webb City have an incredibly good game this time. Blue Springs South finally was able to get a good drop, force people to come into them when they were on that high ground, and it only came around to the end game when they got pushed and eventually got eliminated. But each of the top 10, if not top 12 teams, is currently in a position where a win, as long as you're not Waynesville, and you are one of the teams who could potentially win via win condition number 1. So I'm excited to see what happens in drop number 5. That was an incredibly explosive start for the World's Edge set of drops, and we're going to see exactly what it is that puts these teams across that threshold. So as a reminder, drop number 5, going to go back to World's Edge. And we'll be going live in the next minute or 2. So I look forward to seeing you all in a little bit. And we'll be seeing if maybe this is our last drop of the day, or if we're going to come back for a drop number 6. See you in a bit. All right, the players are loading into drop number 5. So far, in the past 4 drops, we've had 4 different winners. We've had a few teams consistently get top 5 placements with the likes of Marshall, Waynesville, Joplin and North County both had a couple good ones. But every single time we've had a different winner. Now that's exciting for a few different reasons. Number one, it means that the point spread has been incredibly even. It's anyone's game and it's anybody's opportunity to take the win. But on the other hand, it also means any team that has gotten wins plus consistently gotten these top 10 or top 5 placements is that far ahead of everybody else. And that's why we're seeing Waynesville High School as the only team currently at championship point. And it's very exciting as we transition into this next game to see exactly how each team reacts to that knowledge that Waynesville now has the opportunity to win outright. We're going from right to left for our drops, which means Epicenter is now much earlier going to be a point of contention for teams. You're going to see the likes of the Lava Siphon Thermal Station, which were very highly contested last game, not necessarily be as contested now. And we're already seeing quite a number of teams dropping on the same locations. The likes of Van Horn, the likes of Webb City, now are dropping very close to each other. And we're already seeing one of the teams, I believe team number 18, already experiencing a little bit of difficulty. We'll look through to see exactly which team it is that was in the middle of fights. There's a number of teams all around the same location, especially in the top left corner. Seeing a ton of different potential fights taking place. But especially in this top right corner, we're seeing quite a few teams all scout around this fragment area. And we're already seeing a bunch of damage take place in the building directly next to Eureka High School right here. We'll see if they can manage to get a nice little third party on one of these teams, or exactly what fights are happening here, as St. Louis University High number 2 is also right around the corner. We'll see exactly when this fight takes place, because we're seeing Eureka attempt to hunt down somebody. They're seeing a lot of explosions, but still not seeing anybody that they can potentially take out, because this is a very decent loot zone if they can manage to find them. And the first shot goes awry and immediately takes out a shield pop on the enemy Bangalore. We'll see if they decide to push off that, but they are using quite a number of grenades to break out all of the potential openings. And that's now 2 different people on this team that have lost their shields. And St. Louis University High is in a little bit of a bad way. Their Bangalore, one of their healthier players, is now down, and the Bloodhound is also quickly pushed out. And it's all up to their Pathfinder try and sneak away. Eureka managing to have a little bit of a sign of life. But unfortunately, there's a little bit of a noise complaint going on, and the Pathfinder has to find a new place to hang out. Quarter health, 10% health. We'll see if he can get away, get around this corner, because there was a third team somewhere, but Eureka is hot on his trails, and I do not think he's getting out. St. Louis University High is first team eliminated. And we're seeing right now a bunch of fights happening here in the top left. We've got Repmo with a couple of their players already taking shots. Seeing a little bit of a fight away from anything else. This triple take should have a lot of potential to get a lot of damage off. But there's a lot of snaking going around by this other team. We've got team number 10, Hollister, looking to stake their claim on this location. And an excellent jump by this Pathfinder to get around the scary sniper rifle from the sides of Repmo. And we'll see if they decide to try to push off this, or if they'll decide to go to a different location. It's not necessarily a fight they need to take, but they run directly face first into Francis Howell North. Francel North has had an incredibly successful past couple of games, and if they can take out Hollister here in Repmo, they are setting themselves for an amazing next fight and an amazing shot with the 30-30. No scope from across the map. They managed to get a nice ping off on their opponent, but they decide to call it. They say, hey guys, there seems to be a little bit too much action here in this town. Let's beat it and let's go back to our caves. So good call on them to back up, but Hollister knows that they need to get something out of this situation. Slowly getting marked down by the team that's on the hillside, but they are also running close to the Repmo team, who Repmo is currently trying to avoid this fight with everything possible. They don't want to get caught in the wide open with all these giant skyscrapers around the map. So they quickly transition over to their building, trying to make the call that, hey, we don't really want to be here anymore, and move on with their lives. But we're seeing a couple pot shots being taken at the Hollister team still from the other side of the map. And we're seeing a lot of wanton grenade usage. I understand grenades are something that is very valuable to break down doors, break down potential bunkers. I do not know if this is necessarily the situation I'd want to use it, because it's kind of difficult for them to flush them out when they've got 3 or 4 stories to be on. But right now, Repmo seems to be taking this fight in the wide open. Looks like Hollister and Repmo both attempting to stake their claim any way that they know how to. But unfortunately, Repmo's composition is slightly less oriented to trying to take this fight. And we're seeing that Hollister made an adjustment from their time at Stormpoint, where before they were running a lot of Catalyst, a lot of Bangalore. Instead, this time they're going for the Conduit to try and get some resets with the health. And the Ace already gets a couple huge Mastiff shots and manages to take out one of the players from the likes of Repmo as they attempt to just back off and run away, but 2 players are now down for their team. For a composition that was kind of designed to be bunker, play around the fact that you're in buildings, this is kind of a rough position for them to be in. But on the other side of the map, we're already seeing a couple teams try and stake some claim into near the Harvester area. So we'll make a transition over to team number 8, North County, as they attempt to see if they can take over this airship. But unfortunately for them, there seems to be a team snaking behind, not necessarily sure if they know what's happening, but got to be a little bit careful, watch their backs before they try and climb these areas. And we see Web City, one of our teams that managed to get top 3 in the previous game, have a little bit of a contestation here on their side of the map near Lava Siphon. And we've got Team 11 taking a huge fight here. You got a Bangalore coming straight on down on top of their heads. And we're seeing Team 6, Sykeston, being the aggressors here. They throw their Bangalore. They have a bunch of shields already. They've got purple shields. They're trying to get their Horizon a little bit more equipment. Trying to get any type of information by hiding around the corners, seeing if they can hear some stomps from their opponents. And we've got Blue Spring South that's got the drop on them. Couple missed shots might be the difference in them getting these picks or not, but the Horizon, who is already a little bit low on shield, only having white shields, is currently in a bad spot. Kind of difficult for them to get out as the Conduit also takes some massive shots. It's going to be a difficult fight for Sykeston to take, as their long-range guns, they have a little bit less time to kill compared to the likes of Blue Spring South. And that's one of the reasons why you might see a 30-30 over the likes of the triple take, just because you can shoot so many 30-30 shots in the time it takes to get one triple take. So all it takes is a couple shots going your way for Blue Spring South to actually make a severe dent in this team. And we're seeing a ton of positions now towards Thermal Station, as this is an unkind circle for quite a few teams. But Blue Spring South, all they got to do is transition a little bit to the left. They got their own type of triple take, seeing if they can potentially get one amazing shot off, but they still got some people from across the way, seeing if they can't get a little bit of damage done themselves. And Blue Spring South says, hey, it was fun to take this fight against Sykeston, but we don't really want to stay here. We might as well rotate to circle, and they're making that early rotation just like a few other teams. Speaking of, we've got Waynesville, team that's on championship point. They're trying to do some scanning, see if they can't figure out where their opponents are. But unfortunately for them, because they've made this call to be in the wide open, this is a pretty bad fight. They're surrounded on all sides by a ton of different high grounds, and they're just slowly getting pushed on. And this Horizon goes down for it, unfortunately. And it's looking like, unfortunately for them, for Waynesville High School, they've only got the one player left, this lone Bangalore, to try and see if they can get that win. And then on the other side, we've got Parkway South getting a little bit of damage on top of their opponents. This was a team that Waynesville was attempting to get a lot of damage off of when they threw out that Horizon ult, but it doesn't seem like it was really anything that they could do. And now Waynesville's lost both of their teammates. I'm not sure if this Bangalore is trying to play for a little bit of eliminations, see if they can't try and get the other win condition of just having the most points, but it seems like this might be the end for them. They're surrounded by 4 other teams, and there's only so much one smoke can do for you. Let's see if they can try and get out of this situation, as there's bullets flying all around them, catalyst ults, 30-30 shots. Currently, the Bangalore is also taking some bullets from the likes of Parkway South. Managed to get a shield swap off the death box of their own teammate as they're chasing a few other teams taking a fight. You've got Sykeston High School currently in a little bit of a close range fight versus the likes of St. Louis University High School number 1. Whoever wins this is kind of in a good position for this end game, and it looks like it's going to be Sykeston, but unfortunately they're so low that even the likes of St. Louis University High School can just push up and get some free eliminations. And this is looking like a very dangerous endgame for the like of Sykeston, as people are just getting eliminated all around them. Luckily pushing out the likes of Sykeston, but now they're done. And now Francis Howell North is looking to stake their claim on this position. They know that everybody in this fight was incredibly weak. We had so many people down and low, and now there's just some free eliminations for the best team from the regular season. They're trying to make their comeback right now, see if they can get to 50 points and potentially get the win themselves next game. But right on the outside, we got DeSmet. They're hot. They just came from a huge win in their previous game, and they're right now pushing into Francis Howell North, seeing if they can't get a couple limbs themselves, as there's a team directly above them as well. I'm not sure if I would prefer to be in this position by Francis Howell North, but they're playing around the corner of zone pretty well. Maybe they can get this balloon off going into zone. It's going to be a little bit of a tough sell, but with everybody else fighting, it might just be the perfect timing window while everybody else is fighting. But while they're doing that, DeSmet Jesuit makes the same exact call. They could be landing directly on top of each other, and I think they are. This is a huge fight for two teams that have been consistently at the top level of this tournament. And DeSmet Jesuit saying, hey, we need to take this building right now, right on the corner of zone. We do not want to fight into that Bangalore ult that we just dropped down. We need to run away from Francis Howell North because we know what a dangerous team they are. And I know that there's a few teams around them also here trying to stake their claim. So we'll see who comes out on top as 3 teams are looking to take this fight. And it looks like Francis Howell North is the odd man out, as all that's left is their Wraith, who is too far away and needs to just run to the other side of the map and try to survive. But speaking of trying to survive, we got Central R3 currently hiding underneath all of these teams attempting to fight it out at that building, and they are running away before the fight can get to them. And speaking of teams that are trying their best to take some wins, we've got Joplin, who have decided to go for a more bunker-style composition with this Ash, with this Rampart, with this Watson. They're on the other side of that building that we just saw Francis Howell North and DeSmet fighting over. We've got 3 of our top-level teams all here in this one little corner, attempting to try and just stay alive, see if they can't get past the 50-point threshold. And it looks like DeSmet Jesuit is the winner of that fight over there, but they're all incredibly battered and bruised, as there is a huge fight taking on over Thermal Station right now. You're seeing the likes of North County even, where they're the teams that have an incredibly absurd, almost, position here in this endgame. Unfortunately for them, the next circle is out of their control, but just for the position they're in, the Watson gates, the Newcastle, the fact that they still have a Bangalore, so in the end game they can just throw out this ultimate, puts them in such a good position to just take these pot shots, slowly whittle down their opponents. If they can try to get a knockdown or a limb, it would be best for them. But it's a very difficult position to fight into for most other teams, but the Watson unfortunately takes a little bit too much damage. Their shield generator's down, and now they are forced to use some of their own resources. And one of the teams that was shooting at them was Blue Springs here. Also, another defensive composition. You've got the Rampart, you've got the Watson, but the adjustment that Blue Springs decided to make going into this game is that they went the Wraith, so that if they're forced to run outside of their bunker, all they got to do is throw out the Wraith, throw out the teleporter, throw out her dash, and they can get to essentially wherever they need to between these other locations. But it's going to be very interesting because in this World's Edge endgame spawn, crossing into these wide open plains is essentially a death sentence. You're seeing now Blue Springs and North County just duke it out, as now there are only 7 teams left. And this is another reason why the Watson is so powerful, is that even if you wanted to fight her in this position and you want to throw grenades to try and flush them out, she has that ultimate which just eats grenades. And a perfect shot from the Bangalore to throw somebody into the lava, that'll be an elimination in a couple minutes. And they decide it's time to start going right now. Zone is pushing them in. They throw down the Bangalore ult to try and cover the cross so that everybody else is trying to run away, don't try to fight into them. And they're going to see if they can try and take this fight, but unfortunately they are still running directly into Blue Springs, who does not want to let them through, as they still have the northern edge of this zone. And we're seeing North County lick their runes, Blue Springs still take control of their position, and it seems like we got a little bit of a stalemate for these teams, because we're seeing now Van Horn also make a very similar call. They've got the Rampart. They've lost their conduit already. They need to play a little bit further back compared to everybody. And another team that has consistently made it into these endgame fights is Marshall, and they're slowly trying to push in on these other teams. Now, this is a very interesting position to be in compared to the other people we were looking at, the likes of North County and Blue Springs, because those teams had incredibly strong endgame positions with their buildings. Whereas Marshall, they will get pushed in eventually, and they'll have to fight. So they need to try to isolate these ones as much as they can. And actually, they're running directly into a team who is attempting to get a reboot off on one of their teammates. So one of their players, their Horizon, actually says, nope, you ain't getting anybody up. Back up right now. Do not pass go. Go back to your building. We are not letting you get that revive off. So they're trying to hold their ground as much as possible. But in a couple seconds, they're going to be forced to run out into the open where that team that they just fought is currently occupying that building. So it's really a game of chicken right now between these two teams. Which team is willing to go first? Because you still got Blue Springs on the other side of the map. Incredibly strong bunker. Anytime that you cross into this open, there's just a chance that you immediately get eliminated. We've got another team that just went down as well. And there's actually a solo that's just chasing the likes of Marshall right now, trying their best to stay alive for as long as possible. You're seeing them cross right now, and it doesn't look like Marshall has actually noticed that they're behind them, even though the sound cues went off. And we're seeing Team 19 Central R31. Unfortunately, that is the end of your game today. So we've got Van Horn and Marshall on one side, both attempting to take some shots. And unfortunately, this endgame circle, you cannot afford to take that damage. The Rampart from the other side of the map is currently doing a ton of damage. And Marshall High School gets another top 3 placement, eliminating Van Horn. But it's a matter of who will get the win. We've got Blue Springs. They've got an incredibly advantageous position in that high ground. We've got DeSmet, who just got the previous win. And then we've got Marshall, who's consistently gotten top 3s. Either Marshall or DeSmet, if they get this win, I think eclipse the 50-point championship threshold. And Blue Springs High School is attempting to get their first win of the day. Any of these 3 teams, if they win, changes the entire landscape for what we've got going on. And it seems like DeSmet, they're doing the tried and true. They are going to go in. It is their entire MO, and they will not stop it no matter their composition. It's why they chose the Rampart, and unfortunately, he takes a ton of damage and is forced to back up because Blue Springs just continues to not stop the damage. And we're seeing now Marshall be forced to take a fight. And they've only got a couple seconds before this zone pushes them into each other. And Blue Springs, I believe, is going to be the first team to make that call, as one of the Marshall players is now knocked out. And you're seeing Blue Springs, just their position. It's such a difficult fight for both DeSmet and Marshall to play into. But DeSmet says, hey guys, we have a Bangalore ult, which you do not have. So now they're forced to back up. They cannot aggress, and it's up to this Watson with the triple take from very far away to try and hold every other team back. They're saying, Marshall, do not pass this line, because if you do, you'll get eliminated, and none of the teams want that. So now DeSmet, they're deciding to make the call, but unfortunately they're also taking a third party from the likes of Marshall, and it seems like they might be the odd man out as one of their players is down. They choose to throw out the Gibraltar ult to try and buy as much time as possible, and hope that Blue Springs decides to take this time to fight Marshall, because that Gibraltar ult does a ton of damage. And we're seeing an excellent use of the grenade by Marshall to cut the team in half for Blue Springs, and now they're making the call. We have to run across the entire map, try to get behind Marshall, but there is so little ammo here that now they're forced to just take damage. And DeSmet Jesuit once again, they third party correctly. It was an excellent use of the Gibraltar ult to force Marshall and Blue Springs to fight each other instead of them. And this is our first repeat winner of the day. DeSmet Jesuit won the first map on World's Edge. They've now won the second map on World's Edge, and they have become the strongest team in this entire tournament because of their playstyle. They've been so aggressive. They've played their Rampart correctly throughout the day. They've gone so fast, and despite the fact that their composition isn't necessarily built for it, they've still managed to take these fights in endgames around their equipment that they've used, with their Gibraltar ults, with their Bangalore ults, with their smokes, their multiple shields and barricades, to just force their opponents to look somewhere else, and then they can just take the win from right underneath your noses. So congratulations to Smet. Blue Springs had an incredibly strong endgame position until they got forced out, and Marshall once again shows that, hey, we're able to get these top 3 placements. But unfortunately now, 5 drops in, they still haven't managed to get that win. So congratulations to Smet. Waynesville managed to not win this drop, unfortunately for them. But now that means that we're going into the 6th and final drop in just a few minutes. So we'll see you then. It all comes down to this. Drop number 6 of the MOSEF Winter Bash Finals for Apex Legends. We've gone through 5 drops now, heading into our very final drop on World's Edge. And for the first time today, we have had a repeat winner. Desmet Jesuit is now the only team to have eclipsed 2 wins. Now, what this means is that they will hold most tiebreakers if it comes down to it. But it also means that they eclipse the championship point threshold, as they now are leading after their second win with 74 points. So now they essentially have 2 win conditions. Either we need to win, or Waynesville needs to not win. Because it's a very difficult position for a lot of these other teams to be in to eclipse that 70-point threshold. We're seeing the likes of Marshall High School is close, but it's a kind of a difficult spot. Waynesville is definitely the closest to be able to beat them. So Desmet Jesuit has put themselves on a pedestal above everybody else with that second win. They also have 42 eliminations, right? They have just, these last 2 maps absolutely pulled through in a way that they showed actually during the regular season. I mentioned it a few times that our highest placement out of any individual drop for the entire season was Desmet Jesuit with 34 points in 1 game. So this is a team that's always had that potential to be one of the top end teams, but they just had never really shown it as much as some of the other teams during the regular season. But right now, when the going gets tough on the World's Edge maps, they are the team to beat. Now, with 2 wins today, they either have the choice of winning this next game and just outright winning it, no matter what the points total is, regardless of the fact that they're the number 1 team, or just prevent Waynesville from winning and make sure nobody else gets above whatever point total they end with, let alone if it's 74 points or if it's however much it is by the end of it. So that is where they are going. Waynesville unfortunately dropped in 15th place this last drop. Not the showcase that they wanted after their dominant drop 4 performance, but we know that they've made the comeback before, right? They won the first drop, and then they made sure drop 4 was as electric as the first one. So they also have a plenty of potential today. We saw Marshall, for now, I believe the 4th game, get a top 3 placement, but they weren't able to cross that 50-point championship threshold. So now them and the rest of the lobby from 3rd place to 20th place has to beat 74 points and then some, because whatever Desmet Jesuit gets this next game is the score you have to beat. Marshall, Francis Howell North, North County, Blue Springs, Webb City, everybody else cannot win via the championship point threshold anymore. This is drop number 6. This is where it ends. So it's either Desmet Jesuit wins because they have the most points, or Desmet Jesuit and Waynesville win because they have 50 points and they got to win, or you and any other team between places 3 and 20 has to cross 74 and then some. So this is where champions are made. We saw Desmet show out these last 2 drops and really stake their claim that the championship is ours. We saw Waynesville in both drops 1 and 4 say, hey, we are the best team here if we're on. We saw Marshall say, we are the most consistent team out of any team here. We saw Francis Howell North say, hey, we are the best team from the regular season. We saw Blue Springs South say, hey, we are a top 2 team from the regular season. We saw North County stake a claim saying, hey, we're top 2 right now if we have our full team in endgame. So it's anyone's game in this last drop, because we've seen it before. 29 points was the magic number from Waynesville during this playoffs. We saw 34 from Desmet during the regular season. These are numbers that are achievable. So it's up to how these teams decide to close out today. That will determine if they're 1st place, 2nd place, 3rd place, or onwards. Because the way that this works for Apex is that 2nd place team is the team with the most points if Desmet or Waynesville get across that point threshold. So good luck to all these teams. We'll be launching into the map very shortly, and I look forward to closing out our performances today with the best of the best that Missouri has to offer. Thank you for watching, and we're going to go into drop 6 in just a few minutes. And we are loading in for drop number 6. You couldn't have asked for a better ending for this championship. We've got a ton of teams all through top 10 who have the potential to win this championship. We have 2 teams that have shown that they can cross that championship point threshold. And now it's up to everybody to make the adjustment. The one adjustment. The adjustment that will win you this championship. And we are about to get into the dropship to load in for the final time today. And we're going from right to left, starting Overlook, ending at Thermal Station. Thermal Station was where we ended our previous drop. It's where the first drop had a ton of action in the early game, and no team wants to be the one that loses first. I fully expect this to be a game where we might have maybe even 16 or 17 teams by the time we get to drop number 4. We're already seeing a bunch of teams go super far out compared to where they usually would, just so that they don't have to take these fights against each other. But we're already seeing a ton of teams actually land on top of each other inside of Fragment, and we're actually going to quickly jump in there as soon as we can and see if we can't get some good action here. Let me just quickly turn off the overlay so that we can go into this drop. You're already getting a ton of movement around. We got Francis Howell North, one of the teams that are currently inside this industrial complex that we've started mostly every single game. We've got team number 18, Eureka High School, already making a couple great shots without a scope. Who needs it? All I need is to be able to hit my shots. I don't need any assistance with it whatsoever. But unfortunately, the Valkyrie does get forced out. We're seeing an incredibly fast composition from Team 18. They want to get out of dodge and get into dodge as fast as possible. They got a Pathfinder for rotations. They got an Octane for rotations. They got a Valkyrie for rotations. But unfortunately, that means they have nothing defensively. So if anybody runs on top of them with an agent that is used to it, it's going to be a rough fight. And we're seeing France L North, one of the best skirmish heavy teams inside this entire tournament, is the team that's pushing them. We're seeing they got the Bangalore, they have the Conduit, so that when they're taking these fights, they're having a kit entirely designated for it. But their Conduit already goes down, and a quick snipe in the back for this team. The Conduit barely manages to stay alive, but a shot from the side takes out the Bangalore. Can the last player from Francis Howell North save their season? If they lose here, there's 0% chance that they win this championship. This is a team that had 180 points in the regular season. They do not want to go down like this, but unfortunately for them, they have to take these fights against full teams because of their position. And unfortunately, the Wraith only has 25% HP. He's got to run. This is not a position that I envy, and already you got the Bloodhound who takes out the number 1 team from the regular season. We are guaranteed to have a champion that was not the best team from our normal season. And just looking around the map, you've got Blue Springs South from our last chance qualifiers, team number 1, trying to take a couple different pot shots on people from across the way, see if they can't get anything nice with it. Let's make a quick transition over to the teams here on, I forget what it's called, Lava Siphoner or something like that. Yeah, my apologies. See exactly what the fight's going on here, because we got 3 different teams all taking some heat against each other. Got a Conduit, got a Rampart. We've seen this song and dance before. It's all up to how they take the fights now, because both teams have a ton of potential. And already we're seeing an incredibly aggressive position from Team 8. North County R1 wants to win this as fast as possible, but unfortunately they're getting forced away. They managed to get their 1 pick, but they already lost their Newcastle. Unfortunately for them, we already spoke about it before. Their strength has been when they're a full team and they're able to set up their full bunker. But unfortunately, they've already lost a player. They're forced to run away. They can get shot in the back here. So they have to potentially even take this fight against this other team. And team number 5, Van Horn, they've staked their claim. They almost lost it with that North County push, but they managed to stabilize, get back to full health, and now they're ready to push. They've got their Mad Maggie for rotations. Now they're trying to hunt down North County, see if they can't take out one of the best teams that showcase their talents today. And then around the map, what else do we got going on? I have no idea what those guys are doing. But we've got team number 4 here. Waynesville High School. I don't know, dance party was going up there or something. They've already lost one of their players. They lost their Bangalore, who has been so instrumental to their success for the rest of this day. And now they're just running away as fast as possible. We'll go back to Van Horn, see how they're doing and the rest of their teams. Because it looks like there's a lot of potential for everybody to just meet here in the center. And already one of their players is down. Was that Team 4? It was not. So now we've got Van Horn acting like the enforcers for this game, taking out a ton of the best teams around the state. And we've got North County with their tail between their legs, only one player left. They unfortunately lost their Bloodhound player, and it's just the Rampart to try and save their season. Already we've seen a couple of the top dogs go out early, and is North County going to be the next one to join them? Let's make a transition while they're running away over to Webb City as they attempt to take a fight here in this building. It's a 2v1 right now as this Rampart player attempts to bait them all over while their team rotates around the side. And it's Team 11, St. Louis University High 1, that is currently caught out of position with only one player currently taking this fight. And it's just the Bangalore currently attempting to save the season for SLU High 1. Another one of our former champions goes down with that. Congratulations to Webb City for taking out another one of the best teams that we've had today. Going through, let's look at Blue Springs South as they attempt to make a rotation, and they run face first into Blue Springs South number 2. Unfortunately, this is some Blue Springs South action. One of the teams is potentially going to get just knocked out right here now. And you hate to see it happen to be from the same school, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. Blue Springs South wants to win this game. Sometimes you got to take out your brothers and sisters to do it. But for the other Blue Springs South, they just want to get as many placement points as possible, stake their claim as potentially even a top 10 team this year as they just continue running away. It's up to Blue Springs South 1 if they want to continue the fight. Looking through, let's look at DeSmet Jesuit as they just take out a team directly in front of them. This team has been absolutely lights out since the break. Whatever adjustments they made during their lunch break, maybe they ate some Wheaties or something like that, they have been ecstatic to watch. And already you see their Sentinel taking a couple different pot shots, see if they can't soften up their opponents prior towards this engagement. Barely misses the shot right between the legs. And they've already got them running. This is team number 5, Van Horn. They were such big bullies earlier on in this match, and now they're being forced to run away from the potential champions if nobody stops them. Seems like a little bit of a weird glitch right there. I don't know if that was meant to happen. But unfortunately for Van Horn, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right now, forced to use the Mad Maggie ult to try and get out of dodge. They don't want to die to DeSmet Jesuit. They don't want to be the reason why that team ends up winning the championship, and they're already gone. And it's team number 7, DeSmet Jesuit, that holds their ground, and another team that's on the opposing high ground, attempting to stuff some people out. Van Horn manages to recollect themselves, put themselves up on this vantage point where it's kind of difficult to push them. They still got all 3 players left alive. Not necessarily the position they want to be in, but it's not the worst in the world. And team number 8, we've got North County R1. They were in such a bad position just a few minutes ago where it was only one player alive, and they managed to stabilize, get some resurrects off, and now they're back in the fight. They said, we do not want to go out like this. This is our chance to win a championship, and I don't want to lose it right now. We've got team number 13. Repmo manages to take out one of the other units, staking a claim on the epicenter where our first game ended. Fortunately, let's go back to Van Horn as they take this fight almost managed to get a knockdown there in an incredibly strong position versus DeSmet Jesuit, forced to run away with their Gibraltar ult. Once again, this has been their strength as a team, has been using their Bangalore and Gibraltar ults to force rotations, right? That shield break sound effect that you heard was because Gibraltar ult does so much damage that you're forced to respect it. So while they might have lost their Rampart player, I certainly would not consider them out by any means. Looking over at Van Horn High School, looks like their player that got eliminated, there was no way to bring him back. Their respawn beacon timed out, and now it's just two. Two players to try and get the win right now and sneak out a victory from underneath the jaws of defeat. As we got a ton of teams now congregating around this endgame circle at the epicenter. We've got Retmo, who's currently walling out a few teams attempting to stake their claim on the actual high ground here. They have a feeling that this is going to be where the endgame pushes them, and they want to be the only team here when it happens. They saw one other unit try to slip away, and they're trying to hunt them down. Team 16, Central R3, the second team. They've lost their conduit player, about to go down. And now it's up to their two last players to see if they can manage to hide and sneak around. And thanks to a timely caustic trap, they force Retmo to hide away for another day. There you go, Retmo taking a fight, jumps on top of their opponent team, and that looks like it's going to be the end for Central R3. There's only so much that you can do if you're the caustic in this position, and they go down. North County is now attempting to stake their claim on this portion of the epicenter, as it looks like Van Horn and DeSmet Jesuit are, or not Van Horn, DeSmet Jesuit and Waynesville are both still up. And there you go, Marshall High School once again shows that they're Mr. Consistent when it comes to this season, currently almost taking out one of the DeSmet Jesuit players before getting forced back due to the recoil damage. And now they smell blood. They do not want DeSmet Jesuit to be the team that walks away from this with the victory. But DeSmet Jesuit managed to get their revive off, get their third player back. The Ramparts, like they never even left, and now they are leaving. They do not want to be a part of this fight anymore. Let's go over to Webb City, who just currently lost one of their players. Their Rampart attempting to make the escape of all time right now. It does a little bit of a shimmy to avoid some damage and runs off into the distance. Hopes to not take any more damage or hope that their opponents are forced to back up. But unfortunately for them, Van Horn High School, they've been the bullies all game, attempting to stake their claim and take out this other team. But they are running directly into Waynesville, who says, hey guys, we also are here. We heard you're the bullies. But they see 4 players over there, and they do not want to take the fight. They know how this game could end if they lose. They had the potential to take the win for the entire championship. They don't want to lose it right here. And we're seeing Marshall High School take a fight. Ton of damage while their opponents are out of zone. Just because that Gibraltar bubble's there doesn't mean that it's a safe space, but they're using the Gibraltar bubble to try and save as much time as possible. This is DeSmet Jesuit's entire MO. Marshall has not let them go. And a very well-placed grenade just continues to put the damage down on to DeSmet Jesuit. Marshall High School just continues laying out as much damage as possible. Is this where DeSmet Jesuit ends? Is this going to be the final score to beat? As we're seeing now, Marshall has to take a little bit of cover so that they don't get eliminated. Now, DeSmet Jesuit is caught in the middle of a rock and a hard place, just like so many teams we've seen before today. They say, hey, we do not want this anymore. Please do not shoot us. Let us take this balloon and let us get out of here. Unfortunately for them, though, the Bangalore immediately takes so much damage that they have to back out of that entire game plan. And Marshall High School is going around the corner of the same exact fight, and unfortunately they lose out Now they only have one player left to save their season. And he manages to do the most rad thing possible. Heads in the corner, manages to get one, but unfortunately goes down. And Van Horn High School manages to continue their dream drop. And to Smet Jesuit, it's time to run. There are 8 squads left. And lo and behold, who would you see on the high ground once again with one of the most powerful spots for this endgame circle? It's North County. They got their bunker set up. They got a rampart. They got a Newcastle. All they need to do is deal as much damage as possible before the endgame hits so that they can soften up their opponents, maybe get a couple knocks, and then put themselves in that position for a top 8 placement. Looking back at it, looks like DeSmet Jesuit was actually eliminated. Waynesville was eliminated. So now we have the score to beat. It's whatever DeSmet Jesuit got plus 74 points. There's only so many teams that can actually get past that threshold, but this is the opportunity for a new champion to be crowned. We've got Retmo now for the first time making it to one of these endgame circles with 5 teams remaining, fighting against Central R3-1, who unfortunately now only has 1 player still up. Their Bangalore is attempting to play their life for as long as possible while Retmo hunts them down and unfortunately gets caught out. Retmo is now a top 4 team for this final circle. It's looking like North County is in the best position possible to win this game. It's a very difficult place to flesh them out, considering I don't think there's any horizons left. Team 9, Web City, is also down too. They're just hoping nobody pushes them, and if they do, they can take that fight. Team 5, Van Horn, a team that we called the bully all game, they are now a top 4 team. So it's Van Horn, North County, Web City, and Retmo all looking to stake their claim and get the final win of the day. And now North County drops from their vantage point. They get forced out because of the closely increasing circle. And their Bloodhound player is the one who's holding the line, attempting to get around this corner, see if they can't get the last pick. There's only 1 player left, trying to get some punches out. 30 damage. We'll see. Oh, got the shimmy. Managed to get another down. And North County gets 2 out of the 3 eliminated. Retmo, unfortunately, is caught in a bad way, and now we only have 3 teams left. You've got North County, you've got Van Horn, you've got Web City. Web City only has 2 players left, but there's a lot of ramparts in this endgame circle. None of these teams really have the capability to push down their opponents. It's all a matter of who can hit their shots, and with the wingman, it's looking like North County's got more damage than most. And Web City, forced out a little bit by that Mad Maggie utility, attempts to hide behind multiple layers of their rampart. Does a bunch of damage trying to whittle down both of these teams is Van Horn. Web City is directly to their right, and they've got North County across the way, so it's looking like whoever pushes first might be the odd team out in this situation. An almost good snipe coming out from the likes of North County, as unfortunately their sniper goes down, and he's eliminated. Only 2 players left from the likes of North County, so it looks like now Web City is the strongest team right now with their position, but they want to get out of there, because actually Van Horn is set up in a good position as well. This is going to be a very slow endgame. I can already feel it, because none of these 3 teams want to lose. All of them just want to do as much damage as possible. And you're seeing Team 5 right now, Van Horn. They have so many resources, they're actually sharing it between each other right now. Whoever their point player was might have been a little bit low, but they said, don't worry, we got your back. And now North County with the Kraber. All it takes is one shot to the head, and they can equalize this. Does not matter that Van Horn has 3 players. As long as you can hit that one shot. And the Newcastle being forced to use bullets to trade and goes down. Unfortunately, 1 player left. It's just the Bloodhound. He has no Kraber bullets left in the chamber. Needs to try and be a hero for his team as Van Horn attempts to hunt him down. Gets 112 with the Kraber shot to the body. Web City is just hiding around the corner. They don't need to take the fight, but they will. And it looks like North County actually hiding upstairs might be the strongest position possible for them. Van Horn now takes the inside. North County's up top, and he's now getting pushed as the last player. North County's now out. It's just Van Horn versus Webb City. 2 players versus 2 players. It looks like Van Horn, they're ending off on a strong note, and they are the champion for the final drop of the season, the final drop of the championship. What a way to close it out for Van Horn. Now we know Smet Jesuit was the team to beat. No team eclipsed the 50-point threshold and then got a win. So it's all a matter of, did you get past 74 points plus whatever DeSmet Jesuit got in this last drop? So it remains to be seen as to which team is the champion. So just give us a couple seconds, round out the totals. We know Van Horn got the win. We know North County had the most points going into this that was left in that endgame circle. But we still have to figure out who is at the top. So we will see you in about 30 seconds to a minute to crown our champion and announce the final standings for the MOSEF Winter Bash. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for all the teams competing. This has been a wonderful 6-drop event, figuring out who the best team is in Missouri. And we will be back to you shortly. All right, everybody, this is it. We had 6 drops today, 3 on Storm Point, 3 on World's Edge. We had teams come from behind, have great championship level play. We saw 5 unique champions in each individual game today. But only one of them can be the champion for the entire winter season for MOSEF. And without further ado, congratulations to DeSmet Jesuit High School finishing with 80 points, highest in the entire tournament, 45 eliminations, most in the entire tournament, and 2 wins, most in the entire tournament. De Smet Jesuit had the best performance today out of any team. During the regular season, they had the best individual performance out of any team. During the preseason games, they actually won the first ever drop that we played for the season. So De Smet Jesuit, despite having some fumblings, not being the number 1 seed overall out of regular season, had the most dominant performance out of everybody. So congratulations to De Smet Jesuit for finishing as the winter season champion in the MOSEF Winter Bash for Apex Legends. Van Horn High School managed to get second place after an incredibly dominant last game of the day. They were always on that cusp. We knew that they were a top 5 team going into the second half of matches, but they managed to pull away and pull through and come away with that first place victory at the end to snag second place away from Waynesville, who was first place the entire tournament up until this 6th drop. So congratulations to Van Horn, having 28 eliminations, 61 points total, and that win in the last game to secure second place in the event. And then Waynesville, congratulations on third place. An incredibly dominant performance in drops 1, incredibly dominant performance in drop number 4, and quickly became the team to beat in this entire event. 33 eliminations is the second most in the entire event, and 17 or 19 of them came in the first drop. So came out the start with guns blazing and managed to secure a top 3 placement because of it. And then congratulations to Webb City High School, second place team from that final drop, very consistent throughout the entire tournament. Managed to barely eclipse Marshall High School, who I personally had crowned as the most consistent team, consistently getting top 5 placements every time. Say that 5 times fast. And Webb City managed to snag it out, get that 4th place. Final standings at 51 points to wrap it up. So congratulations to all teams today. Thank you for the friends, families, and loved ones who watched their teams compete today. This has been an electric season. We've played now at this point 10, 16, 20 drops over the course of the season. There's been a ton of growth and experience that our students have had, that the players have had, that the coaches have had, that I have had as an individual. And thank you for putting in the time and effort to make it all work. Once again, congratulations to De Smet Jesuit, congratulations to Van Horn High School, congratulations to Wayneville, and congratulations to Webb City. Congratulations to these 20 teams for representing the state of Missouri in our championship. And we'll see you all next time. Goodbye.